Chance of a bit of sunshine here and there, but mostly just staying cloudy, but largely dry. It's in the far south where we'll continue just to see a few showers and still a fairly brisk and chilly wind. Elsewhere, the wind's pretty light, generally a bit lighter than today. Temperatures still touch below average, 6 or 7 Celsius for most. Sunnier skies for Scotland and Northern Ireland, but temperatures here only 4 or 5 at best. And again, where that fog sticks, we're not going to get above freezing. Some of that fog thickening up again Wednesday night into Thursday morning. So again, that could be slow to clear on Thursday. Thicker cloud across these eastern and central parts of England on Thursday. Some drizzly rain is likely here, so quite dank. And again, not feeling very warm with temperatures, for the most part, single digits.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Furious farmers from across the country are set to descend on cities across the UK today.
They're protesting the government's proposed inheritance tax changes.
But despite threats of food strikes and shortages over Christmas, the government is standing firm.
Yes, they've dubbed the Prime Minister Starmer the farmer harmer. They are bringing their tractors to Westminster again, urging the government to have a rethink about those changes to inheritance tax.
And on the ground, our reporter Charlie Peters is with those farmers as they head into Westminster.
Well, it's going to be a tractors-only protest today. Hundreds of farmers will be driving into London, and I'll be joining them from here just west of London as they start that protest.
In other news, the push for prisons. Angela Rayner is set to force plans for new jails on towns and villages. The move will mean the Ministry of Justice will be able to bypass councils to build on Greenbelt under new laws to tackle prison overcrowding.
Major cuts to the Met. Police Chief Sir Mark Rowley fears 2,300 police officer jobs could be lost due to £450 million funding black hole.
As the number of Christmas cards we send declines, we're asking if we should actually be saving the tradition.
And more than half of under-25s have admitted to illegally using their phone while behind the wheel. That's according to a new survey. So should drivers using the phone face a ban?
And in the sport this morning, the Champions League wins for Aston Villa and Liverpool, while Celtic draw in Croatia. Pep Guardiola will not manage anybody else, and the aftermath of Mark Cucurella's slippy boots.
Another calm start to the day, but not entirely sunny. There's some dense fog out there, and in places it could last all day. Full details coming up in the forecast shortly.
Good morning, it's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Ben Leo.
I'm Isabel Webster, and you're tuned in to GB News Breakfast. So we're talking about being on your phone when you're driving there, but what about being on your phone during something like your child's nativity? So we're both off to our children's nativities.
Oh, you're
today.
so lucky. I so miss it.
Yeah.
Do you have fond memories?
I do. I just loved it. And it wasn't just... I've still got the old Christmas card of my son Joe when he was a shepherd, and it's just sweet. Honestly, I can't think specifically about different things in it, but when you mention it, all of my heart melts immediately.
At least Joe had a good role as a shepherd.
Yes, I see.
My boy Jude is one of about 40 angels.
Yeah, but he's only little. I think as they go further up school, they get given the
You
bigger
didn't take him
roles.
aside and say, this is not good enough, you need to act better.
Next time you must be Joseph.
Yes, if you're not Joseph.
And you're...
My daughter is the narrator today, one of 5 narrators, but she's got the responsibility of opening the show, and she did one on Monday, and she didn't get any nerves because she's quite shy.
Right.
And I was worried she would have a wobble, but she was fine. But let's see how she goes today. All the grandparents are going to be there, as well as us. So,
But the problem is, and you mentioned the phones, that's one thing I remember, and this was probably going back 10, 11, 12 years. But now I can imagine it's even worse because everybody stands up and they're doing this, aren't they? They've just got their phone and you can't see anything. It's like, can you get out? And everybody runs up when their kid goes up right like that.
I think they've banned them at my Jude's school.
Have they?
Partly because of child safety. If everybody's taking videos of all the other kids and then whacking it on social media, I don't think they're very...
But if there's one person filming it, maybe the school, then you can actually be present, enjoy it, let the children concentrate. Because if I'm busy taking a picture of it, I'm quite often not actually watching it.
Absolutely right.
I always think that about gigs and concerts.
Yeah.
Spot on.
The amount of concerts you go to, and everybody's just... They're not in the moment. They're watching it.
And do they ever watch it back? You stand there for a gig or whatever, and it's like, I've got to get this. And it's like, then they put it on social media. It's like, nobody's going to watch it. Are you actually going to watch the whole thing back? No, just enjoy the moment.
But you would watch the nativity back. It's one of those things. When your kids are grown up, you're like, do you remember when Joe was a shepherd?
Oh, start going. Oh, no, it's so... I'll enjoy it because it's just the best. Can I come? Can I come? Is that all right? Is that all right? Yeah.
More the merrier.
If you've got any pictures at home of your little ones, of course, by themselves, dressed in their nativity costumes, be it as a narrator, Joseph, or an
Mary,
angel.
or just funny stories, because let's be honest, kids are hilarious. My goddaughter famously stood all through her nativity nativity with her finger up her nose, which is a bit unfortunate, but what can you do?
I do that sometimes on air. So.
So we're in nativity mood. It is obviously the build-up to Christmas, but around the country today, and particularly in the capital, thousands of farmers from across the UK will be descending on cities with their tractors protesting against proposed inheritance tax changes that were announced in Labour's budget.
Last month, over 13,000 people rallied against the changes, and today farmers are warning the proposed changes could kill British farming.
Well, the protest is scheduled to coincide with both PMQs and a meeting of MPs to discuss the impact of inheritance tax on farmers.
Yes, but despite the protest, the government says their commitment to farmers is steadfast and they will not change course on the policy.
Well, let's get more on this with our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who joins us live from Westminster. Good morning to you, Catherine. The optics of this is going to be very embarrassing for the government and the farming community, frankly, really ramping up the pressure.
Yes, indeed. Good morning, both, and not least because the Prime Minister's name rhymes with farmer, so they've dubbed him Starmer the Farmer Harmer. Previously, we had free gear, care, two-tier care, and so on and so forth. But tractors in Westminster becoming not a very unusual sight. We had them just a few weeks ago. We had them, in fact, back in March under the previous government. And now again today, they're currently beginning to gather near Heathrow. They will be coming along the A4, arriving mid-morning in Westminster, and then at the time of Prime Minister's questions, there's going to be a gathering directly outside Downing Street. There's going to be a mock funeral for British farming, a Land Rover pulling a coffin draped in a British flag, we expect. Wanting the government to look again at these inheritance tax changes, which many farmers believe are going to be absolutely horrendous for them, and meaning that they are going to have to sell up. At the same time, there is a parliamentary committee meeting to consider the future of farming. They'll be taking evidence from the National Farmers Union president and from tax experts, because of course the NFU have always said that these changes to inheritance tax are going to be desperately hard for farmers, going to drive many family farms out of business. Interesting that the Institute for Fiscal Studies, a think tank that is neutral, is also now saying that they think the government should look again at these changes. There is currently no evidence that that is happening. The government are saying they're behind British farming. They're saying they're increasing the farming budget by £5 billion. And they say that just in the last week, they're injecting £340 million into the rural economy, saying that's going to benefit 31,000 farmers.
Catherine Forster, thank you. We'll catch up later in the show. Let's go to our reporter Charlie Peters now, who's on the ground at Birkin Manor Farm near Slough in Berkshire. Good morning, Charlie. What's your morning going to look like? Where eventually are you going to end up, and how long is it going to take?
Morning, Ben. Morning, Isabel. Well, what is my morning going to look like? A bit colder than yours, I bet, but I'm going to be at this farm meeting farmers and discussing with them why they're taking part in this protest, why they will be driving their tractors into central London, as you just heard from Catherine, for that mock funeral for British farming. They're protesting against these inheritance tax changes, but there are several other concerns that have been raised as well. We'll be hearing from some speakers later today. And I'll be getting in one of those tractors and joining that protest so that we can see and hear all of the concerns throughout that procession from here, just west of London, into Westminster. Now, as you just heard from Catherine, there are a range of concerns that have been raised by farmers, and the government's response is that for the inheritance tax in particular, they reckon only around 500 farms could be affected. The NFU and other farming bodies say, actually, we reckon around 75 100,000. Well, one of those farmers joins me now. His name is Douglas Turner. He's worked around here for a long time. And Douglas, why are you taking part in this protest today?
Well, the inheritance tax, the government say that they listen to us, but they haven't listened to us. The threshold is far too low. It should be at least 3 or 5 million. 1 million doesn't really cover the cost of the equipment that we have. We had 3 new tractors 2 years ago and a combine harvester. Well, there's your £1 million gone. And at the end of the day, we're producing food. You don't need a mobile phone, you don't need a car, you don't need a television, but you do need to eat. The government say that they're listening. They may be listening, but they're not acting on it at all.
And Douglas, we've heard some response from the Lib Dems, Tim Farron calling for working farms to be exempt. What do you make of that proposal from the opposition benches?
Well, yes, it should be working farms, because unfortunately before inheritance tax came about we didn't have it. Then the government then realised that farmers need to be looked after, because your farm is actually your tool to generate the food that we need to eat. What happened then is that city boys started to get big bonuses. They bought the farms, they don't farm the farms, they sub it out to some of our tenant farmers, they take other subsidies and they take the benefit of the inheritance tax, which is totally wrong. It needs to be streamlined so working farms do benefit from it. The farm we're at the moment, the family have been farming for over 500 years, so that needs to be passed down the generations, because what will happen, if they got inheritance tax to pay, they got to pay they got to sell off part of the farm, then the farm becomes smaller, then it doesn't become viable. It's very difficult out there, and at the end of the day we have to produce the food. If the government don't want us to produce the food, it's because they want to import it and they want to tick a few boxes to say that we don't do this and we don't do that. But when you look at a map of the world, we are so small, so anything that we do is going to have no real impact whatsoever.
Douglas Turner, thank you very much. Well, we'll be hearing many other perspectives quite similar to that, I expect, throughout the morning and on this procession. There's that tractor behind me. I'll be getting in that in a couple of hours. Douglas will be driving me up to Westminster to take part in that mock funeral and indeed that protest outside Parliament as PMQs goes ahead.
OK, Charlie Peters, thank you very much for that.
Well, let's bring in the former Labour spokesperson, James Matthewson, to discuss all of this. Good morning to you, James. Look, this is being described by the farmers as the family farm tax. Could this be a bit of a poll tax moment for your party?
No, I don't think it's as widespread or anything as kind of widely concerned as the poll tax situation was, where almost everybody was affected by that. This is a very, very small majority of people who were affected by any of the change, that is, never mind negatively or positively. And then on top of that, I think what we're seeing is a politicisation of the situation where people think they're going to be affected, or they think there's some kind of target on the backs of farmers because certain people have been whipping up that sentiment, and it just isn't true. It's just not substantiated by the facts.
I mean, the reality, as you say, it only affects a small minority of people, these farmers, but actually it affects us all if it impacts on food security. And the farmers are very clear that this could be a food security issue.
And that's exactly what the NFU goes to every time and time again about food production. The people who were talking about being affected by this, there's a terminology that's used in the countryside, and I come from rural Northumberland myself. My family were agricultural workers and always have been. And the terminology that's used is landowner. We're not talking about farmers, we're talking about landowners, people who own their land, and only 54% of farms in Britain are owner-occupied. A lot of our farmers are tenant farmers, who farm on other people's farms and produce that work. So people who own vast amounts of land have to pay inheritance tax. It's understandable. Now, farmers, obviously, even under this new rule, still pay 50% less than the rest of us. And that's understandable because they need to have these allowances in place. But they're still there, 50% less inheritance tax than the rest of us. And not only that, but 10 years to pay it on top of that.
OK, James, putting everything else aside to do with the money and so on, isn't this just a bit politically naive of Labour to, even consider in the first place, but carry on? It's only raising around 500 million quid a year for the Treasury. The risk-reward seems a bit naive, if you ask me, a bit silly. What's the point of going to war with the farmers and dealing with this PR headache for the sake of £500 million a year?
Well, I don't think they are going to war with the farmers. I think what they've done
is
very
James. They're marching on Westminster today and holding a mock funeral. So, they feel fairly strongly about it.
I think there's a political reason behind that, Ben. I think if a Conservative government was making these changes, we would not see these protests.
So you say all the farmers are right-wingers, all swivel-eyed right-wingers?
The NFU and those organising these protests tend to be Conservative. The Conservative Party has a huge stake in this, and they were making this an issue from day one. They said, the the farmer-harmer thing rolls off the tongue very nicely. It's all been put out with lots of billboards, lots of advertising, lots of PR campaign by the Tories, and of course they're optimising on this. But I'm sorry, I heard a farmer, somebody who I know, who was at the protest the other week with his tractor in Westminster, who had been the same person who was criticising Palestinian protests for shutting down the centre of London, who then thought it was okay to shut down the centre of London when something applies to him. So it's interesting that people only care about issues that apply to them. I do think in this case, though, people have been misinformed. Farmers are getting a fantastic deal, and they continue to get a fantastic deal under this government.
All right, James. Well, quite clearly, they wouldn't agree with that conclusion. Otherwise, as I said, they wouldn't be marching on Westminster. But thank you, James Mathewson, former Labour Party spokesman.
Right, well, I can imagine what people at home already think following on from that, but do get in touch. Let us know always via GBNews /your say. But also today it is the topic for our daily poll of the day. So we're asking, is it time for the PM to take farmers seriously and reverse that inheritance tax grab?
We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure to stay tuned. And of course, the final result will be announced later in Martin Daubney's show.
Yeah, and if you want to cast your vote, just need to go to gbnews.com/poll. I love that conflation there, that basically anybody who is a farmer is anti-Palestine, essentially. Anyway.
I don't know what to say to that. I mean, and likewise, the assumption that all farmers are right-wingers. I mean, I don't know, even if that was the case, that kind of wasn't my point.
It's just divisive rhetoric, frankly, and that's what people criticise this poll for, don't they? It's a divisive tax rate that, at the end of the day, will leave our hard-working farmers left with an unpayable tax bill. Where is the sense in that? We already see the impact on our farmers from this crazy weather that we've got at the moment. Let's not make life harder for us, because at the end of the day, we'll end up paying more in the shops.
Yeah.
Food security is absolutely essential.
And as I was trying to say to James, just from a political... Look, I'm not some political guru, quite clearly, but from a PR perspective for the Labour Party and the new government, why kickstart this fight within 6 months of taking power for relatively, in the grand scheme of things, a small amount of money, £500 million a year?
It's a bit like the winter fuel allowance issue. The thresholds are just completely wrong. They keep saying, don't worry, because they'll be eligible for pension credit as long as they're, they have less than 11,000. So what, if they've got £11,000 a year, they're considered well off enough to pay their own energy bills. It's just the thresholds on this completely wrong. Anyway, let us know what you think. In the meantime, let's take a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
Avanti West Coast train managers have voted to strike for 3 days over the Christmas period. They'll walk out on the 22nd, 23rd and 29th of December for the London to Scotland service. That was after rejecting the train company's proposals for rest day working arrangements. A spokesperson for Avanti West Coast warns that customers will now face significant disruption because of these strikes.
The alleged killer of a US health insurance boss has tussled with police officers as they were escorting him into court. Luigi Mangione was in handcuffs and shouted to reporters outside the Pennsylvania courthouse.
Completely untouched and an insult to the intelligence of the American people and lived experience.
He's been charged with murder after United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was shot in a targeted attack in New York last week. Police arrested Mangione at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania after he was recognised by a member of staff.
And staying stateside, Donald Trump has chosen Kimberly Guilfoyle to be the new US ambassador to Greece. The former Fox News host, who's engaged to Donald Trump Jr., now becomes the latest Trump family member to hold an official position.
The British Army has fired a laser weapon from an armoured vehicle for the first time in a successful test which saw the groundbreaking technology destroy flying drones. The weapon works by directing an intense beam of infrared light towards its target, using sensors and tracking systems to lock on and eliminate them. The MOD says laser weapons could be a cost-effective alternative to some current weaponry because they're virtually limitless in terms of ammunition supply.
Laser weapon, eh? Sounds futuristic.
It does, yeah, just as long as it's in the right hands. These things are always a bit alarming once they get into the wrong hands. But, you know, good to have limitless weaponry, isn't it? You know, no shortage of ammunition with that.
I was listening to one of our very good contributors the other day, maybe a former admiral in the Navy, I can't remember their name. Anyway, they were saying that the narrative now that we have all these amazing weapons and laser beams and so on, and that's enough to replace boots on the ground and soldier numbers. He said it's just not true. We still need more soldiers, still need more sailors.
Not either or.
Yeah.
Right, let's get a look at the forecast. It's been relatively mild and calm, hasn't it, so far? At least it has down here. Aidan McGibbon has a more specific forecast for you. Let's take a look.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Stark contrast up and down the country today with a lot of dry weather but largely cloudy skies in the south. Meanwhile, some frost and fog first thing further north, especially through the Central Belt, around Glasgow, for example, as well as western parts of Northern Ireland. Sub-zero temperatures for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and where we've got fog first thing, well, that might not clear into the afternoon, so staying cold and with poor visibility lingering. Meanwhile, for England and Wales, cloudy skies generally, 6 to 8 Celsius in the afternoon. A keen easterly breeze along the south coast, bringing some showery rain into southern England, especially parts of South Devon and into Cornwall. But we end the day with clear skies for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland. One exception, Shetland, where it will be largely grey and damp, but dry weather for Scotland and Northern Ireland with clear skies leading to, once again, frost and fog overnight, and where we've got the fog persisting through the afternoon. That will just thicken and develop more widely overnight. England and Wales, meanwhile, largely cloudy skies remaining, and as a result, that blanket of cloud will keep things frost and fog-free, with temperatures dipping to 3 or 4 Celsius. We keep the showery rain across parts of South Devon and Cornwall. Another area of showery rain pushes into East Anglia, parts of the East Midlands, North East England. Otherwise, for many, it's a dry start to the day on Thursday. Again, frost and fog for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Some sunshine out there, particularly for parts of the Grampians, for example, Aberdeenshire, Caithness, Sutherland. But for many in the UK, it's a grey day with the lowest cloud expected across eastern parts of England and outbreaks of rain or showers occurring here. Meanwhile, temperatures staying at or around freezing across some colder parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, milder further south.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Still to come, how do you fancy having a massive prison full of lags built on some lovely, beautiful greenland?
The field opposite me.
Sound good?
Lovely, yeah.
Well, but it could be coming to a town or village near you. We'll be hearing about that next.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So we were talking about prisons just before the break. The government has a big announcement that it's planning to build 4 new prisons within the next 7 years.
Yeah, the big question is where, though. That's in an effort to tackle the overcrowding crisis, which has recently led to the early release of some prisoners.
And this comes as the Metropolitan Chief Police Officer, Mark Rowley, has warned that the police may be forced to cut 2,300 officers and 400 staff due to £450 in a funding shortfall.
OK, let's talk to the host of the Protect and Serve podcast, Oliver Lawrence now. Oliver, good morning. 3,300 apparently officers at risk in the Met because they're saying they're not being funded enough. But at the same time, the government is saying, hey, look, we're going to introduce thousands of new officers all across the country. So how does that square up?
Yeah, good morning, both. Yeah, they say in British policing that when the Metropolitan Police sneezes, most forces across the country catch a cold. And this won't be the last announcement we hear from a senior chief who outlines that they're struggling to balance their books because of a lack of funding. And we know that the impact will be felt right across policing, we felt right across communities, with really core policing operational units being either reduced in numbers or being removed from service. Squads like the Flying Squad within the Met, dog operations units and mounted branch units all being reduced significantly to allow for these £450 million worth of shortfall that Sir Mark Rowley's trying to balance the books with. And as you say quite rightly, only a week ago, Yvette Cooper's announcing 13,000 more police officers, which we know in practice is only 3,000. But yet a week later, we're seeing significant issues right across London. So
it's always about wading through the numbers, isn't it? We need to do the same when it comes to this prison story. On the surface of it, sounds like great news. We know we've got a huge problem with A, overcrowding and B, lack of capacity. The government have a plan, but do these numbers stack up? I think they want 14,000 new prison places by 2031. Where are they going to build them, and will that be sufficient to keep up with demand?
Well, it's a peculiar sort of predicament the government faces, Isabel, because if you look at the numbers of foreign nationals that currently sit within our British prison system, it's just a tad over 10,000. And one would have to ask themselves initially, why are these people still in the United Kingdom and why are they sitting in our prisons? We currently have a maximum prison capacity of 88,000. That currently sits just over a tad over 86,000. So we don't have many places left. Obviously, they're predicting by 2029 that we're going to need 100,000 prison places across the United Kingdom. Like you say, the impacts again on local communities trying to find prisons which aren't built overnight. And one has to say that this hasn't just happened overnight. This is over 14 years of failed Tory leadership with respect to managing this portfolio properly. But the arguments have to be made. There are quick wins the government could have here. You know, over 10,000 foreign nationals sitting in prisons. Why isn't anyone looking at the impact that that's having on our prison capacity?
And as part of these new plans from the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, MOJ officials will submit plans for prisons directly to the Planning Inspectorate, which is an agency of Miss Rayner's housing ministry. And you have to wonder where these prisons will be built. Will they be built in traditionally blue Tory constituencies?
Well, I can only hope they're not going to be able to in my backyard. And I'm sure many communities across the United Kingdom will be hoping the same thing, because the impact of having a prison on your back door no doubt will impact your house prices and everything else that goes with it. So these are really big issues that the government are facing. Where they put these prisons is obviously to be seen. But equally, obviously, you can see they're writing the rules as they go to make sure there's no pushback on the planning regulations, that these things can be sped through. But this is going to take time. And as we always say, the devil is in the detail. And will the numbers stack up? Will the government have to increase taxes to pay for these prisons? And how are we going to staff them? You know, we've got prison places in amongst the prison population in terms of staffing. People are leaving in their droves. How are we going to fill those vacancies and more on top of that?
Yeah, that's a huge problem. And what about this review that's been carried out by David Gauke, of course, himself a former Conservative, but he's doing this on behalf of the government and looking at ways of reducing capacity, including lots of non-custodial sentences for those who have currently got shorter sentences. He believes, if the sort of preview of his findings are to be believed, that actually having people serve these sentences perhaps at home is better than in overcrowded Victorian prisons where actually rehabilitation is virtually impossible. Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, it doesn't work, Isabel. You know, prison is a deterrent for a reason. People that commit crimes who deserve to be in prison need to go to prison. If you sentence somebody to sit at home in front of Netflix or some other TV channel to watch, you know, and enjoy themselves at home playing PlayStation, that's going to increase a significant amount of offending right across this country. You know, policing, you know, to have a really effective criminal justice system, you need effective policing and you need effective courts, you need effective prisons. If any one of those elements breaks down, at the moment we're facing all three of them breaking down, then you have a significant impact on public safety and security and increased numbers of offenders. So I don't agree with it. It's a bad idea, and I'm afraid it's a soft approach on crime, law and order.
Oliver, just last question to you. Police numbers aside, budgets aside, isn't half the problem at the moment with policing the fact that, in my opinion anyway, I don't think very many people, or at least a large handful of people, just don't respect the police anymore for a myriad of reasons. That's not to say there aren't very hard-working coppers all across the country, men and women, but there is a bit of a PR issue going on there as well.
Yeah, there are many challenges facing policing right up and down the country. And as we've seen, there have been a number of issues, you know, in the past 5 years, which have affected the trust and confidence that we have in our operational police. And obviously actions are being taken quite robustly, particularly in forces like the Met and up and down the country, to recover that PR image that policing has faced. But, you know, largely and wholly, you know, there are a couple of 100,000 police officers right across this country. 99% of those go to work to make a significant impact in the lives of people that need them in times of crisis. And they will continue to get up and they'll continue to fight for people and look after people and look out for people when they're in times of need. And I think we can see, when we see the amount of, you know, nefarious individuals that should never have got through the vetting process of policing, facing courts and being shifted out of those organisations, that the impact is happening. And I think the change is coming. And I think the confidence, hopefully, is starting to turn in favour of policing, because we need to support our men and women on the front line. It's an incredibly difficult job, a thankless task, and they do an amazing effort day in, day out for all of us.
Yep, hear, hear. Oliver Lawrence, well said. Thanks very much from the Protect and Serve podcast. Always good to have you on the programme. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Lawrence. Time now for our massive giveaway. But before we give you the details, guess who's going to be having an amazing Christmas this year?
Ooh, tell me.
Cliff and Julie from Essex, who, believe it or not, they won Christmas on GB News. Here's what they had to say about winning with us.
My name is Cliff.
And my name is Julie. And we won £25,500 gift voucher and a GB News goodie bag.
When my phone rang, I was on cloud nine. I couldn't even finish my job.
Amazing, just the best feeling ever.
We can get everything we want. We can buy presents for friends and family.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it. But we're glued to GB News. It's the best station ever.
Merry Christmas, GB News!
We love you!
You see, there you go. Take
that.
it from Cliff and Julie. It could be you next time. And, yeah, you know what? We do a lot of doom and gloom in the news, don't we? But I feel a bit like Santa Claus with that, and being able to make people happy is
what
our
a Christmas.
privilege.
What a Christmas. The fridge stocks, presents under the tree, maybe a
good
cheeky
presents this year. Maybe a holiday.
there.
Yeah,
nice.
Well, you think 25 grand and a GB News goodie bag was a good gift. What
Double
about
it.
this one? Double it.
Double it.
50 grand tax-free cash could be yours. Here's how.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Still to come, Arne Slot's not best pleased. I got that. I was asking the powers that be in my head how to pronounce Arne Slot's name, but there we go. He wasn't best pleased with Liverpool's performance in the Champions League last night in Spain. Find out about what happens there with Paul Coit in just a couple of minutes.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are delays of up to an hour and a quarter to Stena Line sailings between Cairnryan and Belfast after the storms last week, with Stena Line and Irish ferry sailings between Holyhead and Dublin suspended. On the Isle of Anglesey, the A5 is closed each way along Holyhead Road at Gwaltmire because of a burst water main. Buses replaced trains between Llyn-Didno and Blaenau Festiniog, also between Shrewsbury and Swansea, and between Carmarthen and Pembroke Dock after the storms. In Hampshire, the A343 remains closed each way between Ashmansworth and Hollington Cross after a number of trees blew down onto the road. In Devon, the A386 is partly blocked southbound by an accident on Tavistock Road heading into Plymouth, and buses replaced trains between Newquay and St Austell, and that's because of emergency engineering work. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
It's about Generation Z spending 6 hours a day online. Generation Z, which age group is that?
16 to 24.
OK, great.
Now, this could explain why there's 1 million young people aged between 16 and 24.
100%.
Not working.
Work.
Yeah.
And I did a TV show and we're talking about it, and the lefty person I was on with was making excuses for the fact that we've got 9 million people unemployed. And this woman, this mom, rang in and she was hilarious. And I thought she was going to have a go at me. She said, Cara Malone. I thought, here we go, another one. And she goes, you are absolutely right. She said, I've just thrown my son out of the house, who's 24. She said, my husband and I, she said, we worked all our lives, 2 jobs, to get him to college, to get him to a private school. Yeah. She said, he hasn't worked a day. No. And his attitude was, why should I? And you think, and she said he spends all day online.
On his phone.
All he's
because
doing.
we would have gone to get a job because we were bored. And the trouble is, Jonathan, the younger generation are never, ever bored because the algorithms keep them stimulated.
Well, the dopamine hits keep coming. I think it's actually a problem for all of us. Yeah. You know, now for anyone, if you just have a moment to yourself, a lot of people of all ages, what do we reach for? We reach for our phones, particularly for those. Obviously, if we're with a friend, we'll talk to them.
Your age group, you're not talking about...
I know that I've spoken to a lot of people who are in their 50s and 60s who also will just, you know, if they have a free minute on the tube or whatever, they'll just look at their phone and read. And it's actually terrifying because on the iPhone every Monday it tells you how much time you spent on your phone the previous week, and it's
for you?
On average per day?
Fair few hours. I mean, a lot of that will be work.
What's a ballpark? Oh, more than 5?
Occasionally 5. Yeah.
Well, better things to do. Spending 6 hours a day.
Do you never read a book? Well, that'll be at night time.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Time now to go through all the sport with Paul Coit. What have you got for us this morning, Coity?
Champions League.
Yeah.
So we know how the Champions League works now, right? So
it makes 2 of us.
So there's 3,000 teams in the Champions League. 65 of them have to play twice. 73 have to play a few times. Look, there's 32 teams in the Champions League. If you manage to get into the top 8 after playing all the games, then you will then qualify for the knockouts. If you finish either 9th to 24th, then you will play a playoff. You'll be drawn against another team in between 9 and 24, and you'll play home and away. And whoever wins that will go to the knockouts. If you're from position 25 to 32, then you're eliminated.
I'm sure I'll get used to it in a few years. But...
OK. I'll just keep hammering it home. I'll just keep hammering it home. So anyway, Girona 0, Liverpool 1. So Liverpool are top of the Champions League. So of all of that, they're going to be absolutely fine. Still got 2 games to play. But at the moment, they're absolutely fine. Didn't play that great. But you know what? If a win's a win. As I always like to say.
That's kind of the hallmark of champions, isn't it? The famous old saying, you know, if you grind out results when you're not playing well, then...
Exactly. A fortuitous penalty. Mo Salah scored. If you win, what's the problem? Arne Slot, although the manager was not overly happy with how they played. This is what he had to say.
Not aggressive enough. So every time we lost the ball, they could just almost every time go all the way to our goal, having a shot or a blocked shot, and then we could attack again. So hardly any control at all over the game. Maybe the second half was a bit better, but yeah.
He wasn't overly happy, but he's a great manager, I tell you. He's another one that I thought this guy's not going to... Yeah, he's going to come in.
I quite like it when
Liverpool.
you don't think they're going to do it, and then they do.
Yeah, well, I don't, unless it's Spurs. But, of course, everybody else is like that. But he is doing a great job. So he's gone into Liverpool, and you think, well, he's just inheriting Jurgen Klopp's side. It's going to be fine. But he's changed things, and he's all for the better.
But Jurgen Klopp's side that he left wasn't firing on all cylinders. You could argue that it was falling apart, and that's what Sir Alex Ferguson used to do very well, rebuild squads.
Correct.
Team after team after team, which Jose Mourinho was accused of being able to do very well. That's why he bailed all the time.
See, I say that about Alex Ferguson. That's what's so clever about him, is he knew when to go.
Yeah.
He realised, OK, I've won the title now. I don't know whether there's too much I can go. I'll walk away now. And that's what managers do. And Jurgen Klopp probably did that and thought he's done as far as he can. But Arne Slot is doing very well. From Klopp to Slot. And anyway, Dinamo Zagreb 0, Celtic 0. Celtic not at their best, but they're now... So the reason I've told you all these positions, they're 17th in the table at the moment.
Playoffs.
Which, very good.
There we go.
Very good. Young boys, they've got to play, and they've got to play next January. Young boys are bottom.
Not again. And what's the name of the stadium this time?
It's the...
You know what the name of the stadium is.
Yeah, I know. Let's not go there.
The... Dorf.
Google it.
You know how close I was to saying it?
Yeah, don't do
OK,
it.
all right, I won't do it.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're just trying to make me do it. Leipzig 2, Aston Villa 3. So Aston Villa are third. So obviously... Instant qualification.
So
It looks very good. Leipzig 2, Aston Villa 3.
Oh, well done.
So very good result. Although Leipzig haven't been very good, and it was John Duran, the super sub again, that came on and scored the winner. Tonight, your lot, Arsenal 10th, playing Monaco 11th. Juventus against Manchester City, and Pep Guardiola's been saying that he's not going to manage another club side.
He's finished after City.
Well, that's what he said.
Actually, that sounds like a hint maybe at a national team.
Yeah.
Spain.
I tell you, you're
England.
Mister, you're on your game today.
He's on
exactly.
it.
He's on fire.
I've had my Weetabix.
You really have. See, he said that. They make a big point, and all the press go, oh, look, you know, he said he's never going to manage anywhere else apart from... But when it said international, he's going, well, you know, it's not 3 games in a week. It's probably easier, so that probably will be next for Pep.
England?
You know what? It'd be great, because they did approach him to see if he could do it, but he wasn't interested.
Bit too early.
Yeah, maybe in the future.
Maybe
in the
we'd win
future.
something.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Coity. More from you just after 7:30.
Absolutely, and World Cup, new World Cup.
Thanks, Coity.
Still to come, we're a bit starstruck. We've got Pat Sharp doing the papers. Do you remember
Reminiscing.
Fun House from the 90s? We
Go on, then, sing it. You've been singing it all
Fun
through.
House, it's a whole lot of fun. Prizes to be won.
Yeah, the
Anyway.
guns and the
Yeah,
go-karts.
oh, and those whirling doors. Anyway, and Paula London, who's always good value as well, they'll be taking us through the papers this morning. Don't move a muscle. Back in a sec.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Our next guest has a rather unique career story. She was working at a pub aged 18 and Holly Farmer was spotted by a modelling scout, and it turned out to be her lucky day.
Scott Yoz Clark sent this message to Holly.
Holly, 18, 5'10", she does not belong in a pub. And I absolutely love that, Holly, because it's a bit like Dirty Dancing, where it's like, you can't put baby in the corner. Holly does not belong in a pub. You belong on the catwalk. What was that moment like for you when you were scouted by Yoz?
It was crazy. I have to say I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. Like, I was just on my lunch break. I was working at a pub, so... yeah, I was on my lunch break walking, going to Primark, and...
You're going to Primark?
Got stopped by yours.
How did that interaction go?
Well, first question was, how tall are you? So, 5'10".
Very much that.
Yeah, then he gave me his card and asked, explained everything, that he's a model scout, obviously.
Yeah, because generally when I scout, especially when I get close to that person, I tend to look in their eyes, and when you see something there, it's like everything works on the face, and then the eyes gives you away.
Well, you've spotted a gem in Holly. I mean, you can tell even when you walked in, you are built to be a model.
I did my first fashion week here in London and then went to Paris, and it was really fun. Wow. Now it's my full-time job. It's a bit crazy, to be honest.
Wow.
To me, like, to be able to say that modelling is my full-time job now. Some brands will ask you to be a bit more serious, and then others not.
So it depends on the client's request as well. Ellie, give us your best model face, really. 3. I wonder if we can come back. 3, 2, 1. Very nice.
High fashion.
Yeah.
But you guys do all, like, contorted moves, don't you?
Yeah.
Like all this high fashion. Do yours?
I'm just permanently living in model
You actually
model
are,
world.
though. He actually
This
does.
is it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Joining us now to go through what's making the news is a childhood hero of mine, Pat Sharp, of many, many talents, of course, but Funhouse fame back in the day.
Thank you, Beck.
And Paula London, of course, the broadcaster and commentator. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Can I just talk about Funhouse really quickly, because we're just so excited about it. I can't believe it ran from, what was it, 1989 to 2000, and you fronted every single episode.
Myself and the twins Isabel did every rerun, the fun, whole lot of fun, etc. All the bits you've just been singing.
I mean, I literally came home from school every day and would watch that, and just so many memories. The gunge and the go-karts and the songs. It's great.
Thank you for
Lovely to have you on.
Thank you so much.
But we're going to start with Paula.
No, well, that's fair enough.
And Paula, this is a story in the Telegraph. The cost in terms of tax relief of working from home, these tax breaks that people have been exploiting. Is this a loophole, or is this people being smart?
It's not a loophole, it's very smart. Actually, prior to lockdown, only 16,000 people claimed. Now there's been an increase of 19-fold. So obviously more and more people are working from home now, which is obviously affecting businesses in town centres, etc. But yeah, if you can claim some money, why not? So home workers allowance, a lot of people think it's only minimal, but it's energy costs and other things as well.
So what can you claim on? It's you can claim back your electricity use, any office materials, I mean, stapler or something?
Yeah, Wi-Fi, I would have thought. I don't know, maybe water. I mean, there's probably quite a few
I've heard
things.
of people in another country, to be fair, but claiming, because they work from home off their government, air conditioning units being fitted. And
that can be quite expensive.
Yeah.
Can you just say...
New carpets.
Could you not just say you're working from home the whole time, though, Pat? I mean...
Well, you could. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's interesting when Paula said water there. I'm not sure if you can claim too much on water, do you think?
Well, the water cooler, I suppose, it's essential in every workplace.
Yeah, maybe, and those little sort of tablets that go into the softener as well. OK, keep going. Tippex.
But, you know, wherever there is tax relief, isn't that taxpayers' money at the end of the day? It's costing all of us that these people are working from home, and there is a sort of feeling from a lot of people that it's shirking from home. So why should the taxpayer be footing the bill for people who are taking naps whilst they should be in the office, you know, grafting?
Well, I think for starters, it's actually safer to work from home. A lot of people are travelling in, you know, the tube in central London, which clearly isn't safe at the moment. Bus fares have gone up.
Why is it not
tube
safe?
fares.
The tube? Why is it not
millions
safe?
and millions of people use it every day.
The tube is. I don't think the tube's very. I don't feel comfortable personally getting the tube because of the type of people. Like, I've been about 3 times. Someone's tried to steal my phone. I've had men touch themselves inappropriately in front of me and things like that. So now, for me, I'll get a taxi or an Uber rather than get the tube. So I would feel safer working from home than having to travel, say, 7 in the morning on the tube. Years ago, I would have felt OK. Now, I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah. OK. Yeah. Good point. I was saying to Isabel this morning that I get the train for this shift in at about 3 in the morning from a certain station, and it's a completely different world. The people you see, the clientele who are up and around that time, sketchy to say the least. I'm OK. I like to...
You're a man, you see, so different.
I did say that to you. I said, do you feel nervous? She said, I think I can handle myself. I like that, I can handle myself. Pat, young drivers illegally using phones behind the wheels is reaching an 8-year high. I'm really surprised by this story because we hear all the time that the young are really virtuous. They don't drink, they don't take drugs, they're kind of fun sponges. But turns out that they're happy to flout this law. So what's this all about?
Well, I think because more and more young people are not drinking and doing things that perhaps people did in different generations, they still love their phone and it's in front of their eyes even when they're driving. I mean, this is from the RAC. 21 years ago it was first law. Can you believe that? 21 years ago we weren't allowed to use our phones behind the wheel. Doesn't seem that long. It's now at its highest rate in 8 years, and 55% of drivers under 25 admitted to not only just making calls behind the wheel, but a bunch of them also said that we're doing voice notes, we're sending text messages, emails and videos.
Not being facetious, but what is the difference between, you know, doing a voice note and perhaps switching on your handheld, what's it called?
Hands-free.
Hands-free, and then switching through to get to the right person through your phone book. I never think that hands-free is that safe. It still involves a little bit of engagement, but what's so much safer about that legally than doing a voice note?
Well, if you've got a pretty new car, you can ask Siri, if you've got an iPhone, to make the call for you, so you don't actually have to touch anything at all.
I don't have anything like that in my car.
Okay. I mean, there are older cars that don't even have hands-free, so then what do? You turn your phone off and wait till you get there.
There are calls now for hands-free to be banned as well.
I think when you have hands-free, you're not concentrating properly. If you're like a roundabout and you're on the phone, even hands-free, you're speaking to someone, I just think it's unsafe.
But that being said, I do lots of long journeys, and that is an absolute dead time for me, and it's great to make the call to my mum or whoever I haven't spoken to in a while, because as soon as I'm home, I'm busy doing stuff. So I do think making calls while you're driving can be safe. It's just I think,
What is the difference between making a call and speaking as I'm speaking now, as if I was on a hands-free, or telling perhaps your kid behind to be quiet?
Well, exactly. It's not kids really... in the back are very dangerous as well, aren't they?
People seem to call at inconvenient times. You'll probably be like on the motorway, very quiet, and then you'll get to a roundabout, then someone will call. So obviously that's annoying when you need to concentrate.
Okay.
Stop banning things.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yes.
Stop it, says Ben.
Hands-free's fine.
Stop it now.
What else should we move on to now? What about, Paula, you like this AI one. Exam boards in schools should consider using artificial intelligence to write GCSE and A-level papers. That's according to the chief of Ofqual, which is an exam board.
Yes. I mean, I would like for a programme to be developed so we can stop people cheating using AI, because it's happening so much now in GCSEs, even degrees, and in A-levels, but that hasn't been invented yet. But now the governor said he wants AI to be used to write some exams, which is a slippery slope for me.
Why? Because it's just saving on getting them to do any work, you know, stop the Ofqual.
Well, AI is often smarter than the human brain.
I don't know how much you've used AI, but I find anything that I've ever asked it to produce has been really rubbish, and I can do much better myself. I don't think it can...
You must be very smart, though, because a lot of people...
I don't think it compete with the sort of nuance and the kind of, you know, phraseology that we would use. It's also still quite American, so you can spot it a mile off.
And it only works based on values that humans have already inputted into it. You know, it's sourcing... It's not a sentient being where it's got its own thoughts. It's just drawing data that's already there that humans have put into it.
But, you know, I don't know what you're like with map reading. You know, I think I've got a decent sense of direction, but ever since I've had sat-nav, I cannot remember how to get anywhere because I'm absolutely dependent on it. So you switched off a certain part of your brain. And my fear is with AI, all these kids are going to come through, they get given a creative task for their homework, they simply won't engage that part of their brain, and it will just be about getting the computer to do it. And we're missing out on originality, human creativity, all those wonderful things that sets us apart.
A lot of teachers can't figure out what's AI and what isn't, though. And I've overheard students in restaurants saying that they're paying people to do their, their work and stuff, or AI.
Well, I'm obviously not going to name them. I know of people who, at one point, and not me because I never went to uni, but they bought a couple of university dissertations from the internet for hundreds of pounds, submitted them to the university, and they were never caught.
Yeah,
they were given degrees with dodgy dissertations.
It's really sad.
So cheating.
I worked really hard at school.
Yeah, Paula was living before this. She goes, I should have had AI.
I know.
No, work there's something satisfying about
I like school.
I agree.
Deadline.
Do it yourself.
DIY.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why they're on social media. They've got the spare time because they're paying people to do the homework or using AI.
See, AI can't hang up a picture like DIY.
Exactly. Get AI to try and do something practical.
Give it 10 years.
It's coming.
Pat Sharp, Paula London, thank you. You'll be back in the next hour.
In the meantime, let's take a look at the forecast. Here's Aidan McGibbon.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Stark contrast up and down the country today with a lot of dry weather but largely cloudy skies in the south. Meanwhile, some frost and fog first thing further north, especially through the central belt, around Glasgow, for example, as well as western parts of Northern Ireland. Sub-zero temperatures for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and where we've got fog first thing, well, that might not clear into the afternoon, so staying cold and with poor visibility lingering. Meanwhile, for England and Wales, cloudy skies generally, 6 to 8 Celsius in the afternoon. A keen easterly breeze along the south coast, bringing some showery rain into southern England, especially parts of South Devon and into Cornwall. But we end the day with clear skies for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland. One exception, Shetland, where it will be largely grey and damp, but dry weather for Scotland and Northern Ireland with clear skies leading to, once again, frost and fog overnight, and where we've got the fog persisting through the afternoon. That will just thicken and develop more widely overnight. England and Wales, meanwhile, largely cloudy skies remaining, and as a result, that blanket of cloud will keep things frost and fog-free, with temperatures dipping to 3 or 4 Celsius. We keep the showery rain across parts of South Devon and Cornwall. Another area of showery rain pushes into East Anglia, parts of the East Midlands, North East England. Otherwise, for many, it's a dry start to the day on Thursday. Again, frost and fog for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Some sunshine out there, particularly for parts of the Grampians, for example, Aberdeenshire, Caithness, Sutherland. But for many in the UK, it's a grey day with the lowest cloud expected across eastern parts of England and outbreaks of rain or showers occurring here. Meanwhile, temperatures staying at or around freezing across some colder parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, milder further south.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are delays of up to an hour and a quarter to Stena Line sailings between Cairnryan and Belfast after the storms. Stena Line and Irish ferry sailings between Holyhead and Dublin remain suspended. On the Isle of Anglesey, the A5 remains closed along Holyhead Road at Gwaltmai because of a burst water main. Buses replaced trains again today between Llandudno and Blaenau Festiniog, between Swansea and Shrewsbury, and between Carmarthen and Pembroke Dock. The M25 in Kent is partly blocked by an accident clockwise between junctions 2 and 3 from the A2 to the M20, causing queues. In Devon, the A386 is partly blocked southbound by an accident on Tavistock Road at the junction with William Prance Road, where it's slow heading into Plymouth. And in Cornwall, buses replaced trains between Newquay and St Austell, and that is because of emergency engineering work. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Imagine getting the call to
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning to you. Furious farmers from across the country are set to descend on cities all across the UK today.
They're protesting the government's proposed inheritance tax changes.
Yes, but despite threats of food strikes and shortages over Christmas, the government is standing firm.
Yes, they've dubbed the Prime Minister Starmer the farmer harmer, and they're coming to Westminster again, hoping that the government will have a change of heart over those rises to inheritance tax. I'll bring you more details shortly.
And out on the ground, our reporter Charlie Peters is with those farmers as they head to Westminster.
Well, dozens of tractors have arrived here in the last hour to prepare for that protest driving onto Westminster.
Elsewhere, the push for prisons. Angela Rayner is set to force prisons in towns and villages all across the country under new plans that she wants to push through. The move will mean the Ministry of Justice will be able to bypass councils to build on greenbelt land under new laws to tackle overcrowding.
Major cuts to the Met. The police chief, Sir Mark Rowley, fears 2,300 police officer jobs could go due to a £450 million funding black hole.
And as the number of Christmas cards we send declines, we're asking if we should save the tradition.
And more than half of under-25s admitted to illegally using their phones whilst behind the wheel. That's according to a new survey. So we're asking this morning, should drivers be using mobiles? Should they face a ban?
And the sport this morning, win to the Champions League for Aston Villa and Liverpool, while Celtic draw. And although FIFA will go through all the nonsense and the rigmarole of opening up the envelope, Saudi Arabia, surprise, surprise, will be announced as the host of the 2034 World Cup.
Another calm start to the day, but not entirely sunny. There's some dense fog out there, and in places it could last all day. Full details coming up in the forecast shortly.
It's 7:01. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ben Leo, and this is GB News Breakfast. Good morning to you all. So we've been talking today about the nativity performances all across the country from our little children and grandchildren.
Tis the
season. So yeah, this is. We thought we'd share pictures from our Sprogs. This is Jude, my boy, at his nativity performance yesterday.
Oh, look!
He was an angel.
Wow.
More ways than one. My wife made that costume. Very good effort.
It looks like a picture from like
it's
100 years ago.
It
really
with
does.
The backlight and everything. Very lovely.
I think it's her new phone. It's a new smartphone.
Very nice.
And this is a picture of my daughter, also an angel, but from a few years ago. Poppy. She's got her nativity this afternoon. She's just a narrator. There won't be any fancy
Just a narrator?
No, it's a fantastic role. But I mean, she does.
I want you to be Mary, and that's the end.
That's a whole other topic. She might be listening. It's a fantastic role, darling. Can't wait to watch it. No, but look how cute she looks. It was so sweet.
Lovely wings. Lovely wings.
Is there a problem here?
I mean, I was Mary, OK? I hope the tradition would carry on.
Yeah,
but you know what? I'm proud of her. She's opening the show this afternoon. I'm sure it'll be great.
And also narrators. Nothing wrong with narrators. I was a narrator.
Yeah, narrator energy. Yeah. It's worked out well for us, isn't it?
Speak properly. Speak from the
diaphragm.
Not the stomach, the diaphragm, that's the one.
That's the one.
Someone's educated. Right, keep those pictures coming in if you can. gbnews.com/your say or gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, thousands of farmers from right across the UK will today again descend on cities across the country with their tractors to protest against proposed inheritance tax changes announced in last month's budget.
Last month, over 13,000 people rallied against the changes, and today, farmers are warning the proposed changes could kill British farming.
Well, it's scheduled to coincide with both PMQs and a meeting of MPs to discuss the impact of the changes.
But despite the protest, the government says their commitment to farmers is steadfast and they won't change course on the policy.
Well, let's get more on this from our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. I mean, they're really digging their heels in on this, and I just wonder if it is worth the political capital. The images of tractors all across the country this close to Christmas has to have concerns about food security, doesn't it?
Yes, you would wonder, wouldn't you? This is now the third time this year that tractors will have come into the heart of Westminster. They were here just about a month ago after that budget and those inheritance tax changes. They were also here back in March under the previous government. They have dubbed the Prime Minister Starmer the farmer harmer. They're saying that these changes brought in the budget is going to drive many family farms simply out of business. There's a threat to food security as well, they say. So they're coming into Westminster, they're gathering west of London now, driving in to coincide with Prime Minister's questions. There'll be a mock funeral for farming, and at the same time this morning there's a parliamentary committee meeting talking about the future of farming, and among those giving evidence will be the National Farmers Union President Tom Bradshaw and also tax experts, because the government is saying, look, a couple with a farmhouse can pass on £3 million tax-free and they still get a discount of paying inheritance tax at half the rate of the rest of us. But even bodies like the Institute for Fiscal Studies are now suggesting that the government needs to look at this again. Now, the government say they're fully behind British farming. They say that they're investing £5 billion in farming, and that just 340 million just in the last week into the rural economy. But farmers certainly are not feeling the love that the government say that they have towards the industry.
Catherine Forster, thank you very much for that. Let's go to the ground now, where our reporter Charlie Peters is at Birkin Manor Farm near Slough in Berkshire. Good morning, Charlie. What's the latest where you are?
Good morning. Well, they've been farming here for over 500 years. And in the last hour or so, dozens of tractors have arrived ahead of that planned protest on Westminster. I have to say, it's a small battalion of agricultural anger on this land. It's quite a sight seeing them arrive, dozens of those tractors arriving and gathering at this farm to prepare for that flotilla going down the A4 and arriving at Westminster for that protest. Now, as you've heard, inheritance tax is top of the agenda for these farmers, forgive me, but there's also several other concerns that have been raised. And to hear more about them, I'm very happy to say I'm joined now by Sandy Gilbert. You're a farmer nearby in Berkshire. Why are you taking part in this protest today?
I see the inordinate struggle at home, and I see sleepless nights, I see worry, and I have to support in a support capacity to ensure that the mental health of my family is kept well. And that's what I do at the farm. And I see every day anger, stress in Dan's face, trying to run the farm. His mother is 80 years old and goes to work every day and runs the office side. The pressure on these two as farm owners is enormous, and they don't need any more. They can't take any more than what they already have on their plates.
And farmers across the country are saying they feel that pressure, but in response the government have said actually farmers will benefit from this because there'll be more money to reduce energy costs and improve the NHS. How have you responded to that line from Labour?
Well, I feel that the NHS absolutely needs our support, but there are other ways that can be achieved. But certainly the tax that is paid from farms, whether that be via staff that they employ, things that they purchase, or the economy, the whole circular economy around them, whether that be from fertilisers to tractors to staffing to running the local community and the infrastructure that it requires to run a farm is huge. You remove that and all those taxes and all that money that comes into the economy just locally for our farm alone would be incredibly significant if we lost that.
Sandy Gilbert, thank you so much for that. Well, as you've heard, Ben and Isabel, plenty of concern here, and it's not just anger, there's also, as I said, concern for the mental health of farmers amid this period of protest for them. I'll be getting in one of those tractors behind me, and I'll be joining them as they drive on to Westminster to share their anger and their concern with the Prime Minister.
OK, Pete, Charlie, thanks very much indeed.
We're joined now by dairy, beef and arable farmer Charles Godby, who's live from North Warwickshire. Good morning to you, Charles. Thanks for joining us. What's your thoughts on today's action and indeed the wider issue of the government and their apparent war on you and your colleagues?
Well, nobody wants to be taking action. Let's just get that through straight away. But this is necessary, and this is only just the beginning if the government don't turn around and look at the figures. We know that they're wrong. I've actually, in the last week, I've had a letter back from the Treasury. I did a Freedom of Information request, and the Treasury have admitted in writing that they have got no idea on the figures for business property relief for farmers. And that is what they're basing half of their statistics on. Yeah. There's also come out in the last couple of days that the figures that they have for APR, when you look at the government guidelines for filling out the inheritance relief forms, they tell you to use the agricultural, the accounts figures, which are vastly below what the true figures would be if you had to do a proper Red Book valuation. So again, the figures they're using for APR are vastly wrong as well. So how on earth the government could come up with a policy not knowing any figures and not even having a clue what impact this is going to have on farmers and on food security is just absurd.
And meanwhile, you even have the independent think tank, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, saying the government should think again on all of this, and yet the government are digging their heels in. I quote, "We remain steadfast and are very clear we are not going to change course." How frustrated do you feel about that?
Immensely frustrated. And it's petulance. It's like a little toddler at the minute. They're behaving just so stupidly. Everybody's pointed out that they've got it wrong and they're just refusing to admit it. And the problem is, if they don't admit it, we're going to see that much damage to farming. We're going to see that much damage to the environment. But, you know, it's going to be a short period of time before we see huge impacts on supermarket shelves, on the cost of food. We're going to see food inflation on the back of this policy. And before long, we're going to have no choice. We're going to see your likes of your chlorinated chicken, your hormone beef, your GM produce filling our shelves.
Charles, the government this morning has announced it's injected more than £343 million into the rural economy in the first week of this month, benefiting, apparently, according to their figures, more than 31,000 farmers, your colleagues. I mean, is that not proof that they are listening to you and they are trying to come to a compromise, I guess?
Absolute nonsense. So at the same time, we've seen the capital grants for countryside stewardship. They've just been halted. The government have been trying to claim that they've put in the biggest cash injection into agriculture in history. Well, we've proven that's wrong because it was far bigger in 2014, 2015. So the figures that they come up with, I'm sorry, I just do not believe a thing that comes out of government at the minute.
OK, Charles Godby, we have to leave it there. Thanks very much. We were talking about nativities. I don't know if you heard it just a few moments ago, but it feels apt that you are there in what gets described around this time of year, a lowly cattle shed. The cattle are lowing. I can think of so many sort of festive analogies. But anyway, thank you very much for letting us see your beautiful herd there, and good luck today. Thank you.
Thank you.
And they work so hard. There was this, the government said a few weeks back or a month or so that Keir Starmer was a working person. And, of course, they said, we're not going to tax working people. And what do? They tax farmers with inheritance tax. And I just think in my head, at the time, I thought, farmers are perhaps the hardest grafting people in this country. They don't get days off. They can't really strike because they still have to feed the herd and the cattle and, you know, whatever animals they've got. They're up from dusk till dawn. I mean, I salute them. I couldn't imagine doing that job, the graft involved.
And just exactly what will happen if these farms are unable to pay their tax bills? Who's going to take over this land? Is it going to be concreted over? Heaven forbid, we're going to have prisons popping up and local councils being totally overruled by central government. It isn't exactly a sort of green countryside-facing government, is it, this one? So we're asking in our poll of the day, is it time for the Prime Minister to take farmers seriously and reverse this inheritance tax grab?
We'll bring you the live results throughout the day, so make sure to stay tuned for that. And the final results will be announced later in Martin Daubney's show from 3 o'clock.
And if you'd like to cast your vote, you just need to go to gbnews.com/poll.
OK, time now for your weather with Ada McGibbon.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Stark contrast up and down the country today with a lot of dry weather but largely cloudy skies in the south. Meanwhile, some frost and fog first thing further north, especially through the central belt, around Glasgow, for example, as well as western parts of Northern Ireland. Sub-zero temperatures for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and where we've got fog first thing, well, that might not clear into the afternoon, so staying cold and with poor visibility lingering. Meanwhile, for England and Wales, cloudy skies generally, 6 to 8 Celsius in the afternoon. A keen easterly breeze along the south coast, bringing some showery rain into southern England, especially parts of South Devon and into Cornwall. But we end the day with clear skies for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland. One exception, Shetland, where it will be largely grey and damp, but dry weather for Scotland and Northern Ireland with clear skies leading to, once again, frost and fog overnight, and where we've got the fog persisting through the afternoon. That will just thicken and develop more widely overnight. England and Wales, meanwhile, largely cloudy skies remaining, and as a result, that blanket of cloud will keep things frost and fog-free, with temperatures dipping to 3 or 4 Celsius. We keep the showery rain across parts of South Devon and Cornwall. Another area of showery rain pushes into East Anglia, parts of the East Midlands, North East England. Otherwise, for many, it's a dry start to the day on Thursday. Again, frost and fog for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Some sunshine out there, particularly for parts of the Grampians, for example, Aberdeenshire, Caithness, Sutherland. But for many in the UK, it's a grey day with the lowest cloud expected across eastern parts of England and outbreaks of rain or showers occurring here. Meanwhile, temperatures staying at or around freezing across some colder parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, milder further south.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It is time now for our massive giveaway. But before we give you all the details of that, guess who's going to be having an amazing Christmas this year on us?
Is it Cliff and Julie from Essex?
Oh, it's Cliff and Julie from Essex. They won Christmas on GB News. Here's what they had to say about winning.
My name is Cliff.
And my name is Julie. And we won £25,500 gift voucher and a GB News goodie bag.
When my phone rang, I was on cloud nine. I couldn't even finish my job.
Amazing, just the best feeling ever.
We can get everything we want. We can buy presents for friends and family.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it. But we're glued to GB News. It's the best station ever.
Merry Christmas, GB News!
We love you!
Oh, we love you too, Cliff and Julie, and all you viewers at home, and you could be in their shoes as well, because it's our next phase of the Great British Giveaway. This time, we've doubled the prize pot, £50,000.
Yeah, tax-free as well. It's an amazing sum, so just as Cliff and Julie say, got to be in it to win it. Here's how.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
OK, still to come, we're going to be joined by Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Minister, the Conservative. He, of course, ran very close to becoming a new Tory MP. We'll ask him about Angela Rayner's plans to build prisons on Greenbelt land.
Yes, and all of the other big stories of the day. But we're also going to be having a debate about should we still continue to be sending each other Christmas cards. Do you send Christmas cards?
Absolutely. I can't believe it's even up for debate. As opposed to what? Digital
just not
research?
bothering.
Or not...
Some people don't bother.
Not
me, not me. We'll be discussing that after this quick break. See you in a moment.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Coyte's here with all the latest sports news. Paul Coytes, good morning, welcome back.
Thank you very
What's in
much.
your box of tricks?
In my box of tricks is the World Cup 2034. Although it's not really a trick, well, it probably is a bit of a trick because they've managed to pull this one off. But FIFA and Gianni Infantino, very strange situation. But anyway, 2034, the World Cup has been given to Saudi Arabia.
Do you know what we're going to do? We're going to come back to you in just a moment and interject into the sport very briefly because we are now joined by Robert Jenrick. He's the Shadow Justice Minister and, of course, leadership hopeful for the Conservatives. Lovely to have you on the programme. Thanks for joining us this morning. Can we start by talking about our top story, which is these farmers up and down the country up in arms about these proposed changes to inheritance tax. The government digging their heels in, saying that they will not change course on this. What's your view?
Well, I think the Labour Party, the government have declared war on rural communities right across our country. This is an iniquitous tax. This is preventing family farmers from handing on their farm as they'd always planned to their children and their grandchildren. It's going to cause havoc across the countryside. We, the Conservative Party, have been opposing it tooth and nail, and we're going to keep pressing the case in Parliament, urging the government that it's not too late for them to change course.
Do you recognise that there is a problem, though, that there are these wealthy landowners, many farmers are describing them as city boys who've had huge bonuses, going out, buying up parts of our British countryside and avoiding paying inheritance tax? Is it the methodology that you don't like, or do you not object to that either?
Well, look, the Labour Party could have taken action against wealthy city financiers buying large farms purely to reduce their inheritance tax bill. But they've done something quite different to that. They set the threshold at a low level, so this is affecting small family farms, the types of farmers up and down our country who have a couple of hundred acres, who are getting up first thing in the morning, working hard, trying to protect our countryside, our food security. They are the lifeblood of our rural communities, and I think these people deserve our respect, and they deserve the right to be able to hand their farm on to their children and their grandchildren. The Labour Party do not appreciate rural life. In fact, this is a whole pattern of measures that the Labour Party have brought in their short term in government. Everything from attacking the farmers to changing how buses work in rural communities, hiking the fares from £2 to £3, you name it. They are hurting rural communities, and we are going to stand up for them and ensure that we're holding Labour to account in government.
Mr Jenrick, good morning. The government this morning has announced, though, more than £300 million financial injection into the rural community, benefiting, they say, more than 30,000 farmers. So they would disagree with your conclusion there?
Well, I think you see a real pattern of measures that the Labour Party have been bringing, whether it's rural transport, whether it's the family farms tax, whether it's a hiking council tax, which is predominantly going to hurt rural communities. They've just said they're going to scrap the Rural Services Delivery Grant, which provides money to rural councils, the likes of Lincolnshire and Herefordshire and Norfolk, where it is more expensive to deliver public services than in the big metropolitan cities. At every turn, Labour are hurting rural communities. And I think that's because Keir Starmer and his ministers are totally out of touch. You know, the Environment Secretary is a Member of Parliament for Croydon. He didn't even own any wellies. He had to get them bought by Lord Alley the other day. They don't know about rural communities. They don't appreciate them, and they're hurting them. And so it falls to the Conservative Party, which has always stood up for our rural communities, to back our farmers. Okay. And that's what we're going to do. Just the other day, we held a vote in Parliament holding Labour MPs to account, particularly those who now represent rural communities, and man and woman after man and woman, they went through the division lobbies and backed their party over the farmers, going ahead with this iniquitous family farm tax.
Can we talk about prisons? Obviously, in your capacity as the Shadow Justice Secretary, you've got plenty to say about the plans that are being unveiled by the government today. They're talking about 14,000 new prison places. 7 years' time, we will have 4 new prisons completed. And they're talking about rapid deployment cells as well as refurbishing 1,000 existing cells. And your opposite number, Shabina Mahmood, who is the Justice Secretary at the moment, talks about your damning record on this, that you had promised 20,000 prison places by the mid-2020s, but she described that as hollow. She's right, isn't she? By the time you left office, you'd only built 6,000.
Well, despite all the fanfare in Labour's announcement today, there is not any money for new prisons. They're just proceeding with the prisons that we set out when we were in government. 2 were delivered before we left office. A further 1 is going to be delivered next year, the others very soon thereafter. The Labour Party are admitting that there's going to be a massive shortfall in prison places in the years ahead. And they're not dealing with the heart of this problem, which is that you've got to get the court sitting for more hours so you can get cases, get the thousands of prisoners who are in prison, on remand, awaiting trial, through the system. And most importantly, we've got to get the 10,000 foreign criminals out of our prisons, out of our country. It is a disgrace, frankly, that those people are clogging up our prisons, preventing us from getting offenders like hyper-prolific offenders, the career criminals who are causing so much problems in our country,
to be fair,
into jail. I want to see the government straining every city to get those foreigners out of our country.
Why didn't you do that? You had 14 years.
Well, actually, we did. Actually, we did. Well, with respect, we did deliver more prison places than any prior Labour government in living memory. But of course we want to do more. I want to see us building more prisons. I want to see us locking up more offenders, particularly these career criminals who are doing things like shoplifting, burglary, nicking mobile phones, things which should not be happening in our country. And I worry that there is a growing sense of impunity. But the way to do that is stronger sentences and to free up prison capacity. Yeah. And I think we've got to get these foreign criminals out of our prisons, back home to their own countries.
OK, Mr Jenrick, just finally, Nick Candy, the billionaire businessman, he's donated a large sum of money to Reform UK. He's defected from your party, once a big donor, to Reform. Suella Braverman's husband has defected to Reform. When are you making the move?
No, I'm not leaving the Conservative Party. I've just spent the good part of this year standing to be leader of this party. I care about the party. I want it to succeed. I appreciate why some people are looking to reform, and yes, they are doing well at the moment. We'll see how that pans out over the course of the Parliament. But what I've got to ensure, alongside Kemi Badenoch, is that the Conservative Party is the natural home for every small C Conservative in this country. People who, like me, want to see secure borders, want the toughest approach on crime, want to get our economy fired up and lower taxes, want to have a sensible approach to energy, not just a zealous Ed Miliband attitude to net zero. We can be the party that stands for each and every one of those things, and we can bring those voters back home to us in the months and the years to come.
You can't deny Reform has got the momentum at the moment. Would you rule out perhaps working with them, some sort of coalition in the future?
Well, Reform is a different party. In fact, they have said they want to destroy the Conservative Party. What I want to see is that we have a strong opposition and ultimately that we get back into government, because we've got to get this Labour Party out of office at the next general election. And you can't do that if the right of British politics is divided. So my mission, the Conservative Party's mission, is to restore trust, to get those voters back home to us and to win the next general election.
OK. Thank you very much. Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick, a pleasure talking to you this morning. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Still to come, should we keep the tradition of saving Christmas cards and indeed sending them? We'll debate that next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are delays of up to an hour and a quarter to Stena Line sailings between Cairn Ryan and Belfast. Stena Line and Irish Ferry sailings suspended between Holyhead and Dublin again today. On the Isle of Anglesey, the A5 remains closed each way along Holyhead Road at Gwaltmai because of a burst water main. Buses replace trains between Llyn-Didno and Blaenau Festiniog, between Swansea and Shrewsbury, and between Carmarthen and Pembroke Dock. The M25 in Kent queuing clockwise towards an accident halfway between junctions 2 and 3 from the A2 to the M20. The queues back over the QE2 bridge, back to junction 30 for the A13. In Hampshire, the A343 is closed each way between Ashmansworth and Hollington Cross because of fallen trees. And in Cornwall, buses replace trains between Newquay and St Austell, and that is because of emergency engineering work. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, hold the front page. It's 2 weeks till Christmas.
14 days.
Today. Yeah, make sure you've got all your shopping done. But what about Christmas cards? Have you sent all your Christmas cards?
No, not yet. We get onto it. We're a bit late. I'm late with everything, shopping and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still enjoy sending Christmas cards.
Yeah, I'm not very good. I have to admit, I'm a little bit guilty when it comes to this. Many find Christmas cards arriving in the post from family and friends a really lovely way of staying in touch and seeing what their friends are up to.
And also, lots of people now, including my mother-in-law, they make cards. There's a nice creative process behind it instead of just buying a pack, which is also OK, I guess, but it's morphed into this new thing. Anyway, a survey by Royal Mail has found that more Brits prefer to receive cards during the festive period than not.
But with some opting out of ending season's greetings, is it a tradition worth saving? I think it means of sending.
Yeah.
Sending season's greetings. Is it a tradition worth saving? Good question. Well, to debate this, we're joined by the etiquette expert Liz Brewer.
And the political commentator, Jess Gill. Good morning to you both. Jess, let's start with you. I get a feeling you're probably not going to be a fan of sending traditional Christmas cards.
Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, I don't want to be a Grinch about it, but I think what Christmas cards have become is honestly quite useless. I mean, for a lot of people, it's literally just dear whoever, dear Leo, have a Merry Christmas and a New Year from Jess. Like, that's all it is. There's nothing to it, which is a shame because I think the idea of Christmas cards is very, very wholesome, very meaningful, and also the cost of it as well. I have sent Christmas cards out this year, but for one, it's quite costly because I have friends all over the country, and two, like, it just takes lots of time. It's very, very time consuming, and it's like, the cost of a Christmas card, you can get Christmas cards for like £2 now, and if you have a lot of friends, not that I'm claiming I do, but if you have a lot of friends, it does add up. You can spend an awful lot for just pen and paper.
OK, well, let's bring Liz Brewer into all of this. It costs a lot of money and it costs a lot of time. So how can people afford to do it?
Well, if you're going to judge on spending time, money I can understand. It is expensive nowadays to send Christmas cards. I brought you a selection of the ones that I've already received. You'll see each one, they take so much trouble. Look at Dame Shirley Bassey, look at Joan Collins, look at Biggins, Leslie Joseph. Every year they go to such trouble, and not only to do the photograph, a Christmassy photograph, but a message inside. It's the one time of year where you need to make time to actually connect with friends and people you haven't seen for a while, especially in these days of sort of everything being remote.
Jess, sorry to interject there, Liz. Jess, isn't that the point? It doesn't matter what, how elaborate the message inside is. It's the act, it's the time that you're giving somebody to let them know you're thinking of them, and you've gone to the trouble of writing the card, buying a card, going down to the post office and sending it off.
Yeah, I'm not completely against Christmas cards, don't get me wrong. I just think what they've become is an absolute joke in terms of the financial cost of it. And also in terms, like, people aren't taking the time to spend a meaningful message in a Christmas card. Like, growing up, I had relatives who would literally just put, like, one sentence in the Christmas card. And it's like, yes, the thought is nice, but at that point, a text would have done. So it kind of reduced the point of it. And if you are just going to send a message, if you are just going to send something as generic as that, I would rather just a message. I'd rather a meaningful text message than a very bland Christmas card, in all honesty.
OK, well, listen, we're out of time, but I think, in all
Can I just quickly interject? There are ways nowadays, because of the expense, you can write a letter, you can do a photograph, and you can send it out. You do it various ways, email, Instagram, whatever. You can still do that, and you're still thinking of other people.
No excuses, says Liz. We have to leave it there. Liz Brewer, Jess Gill, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you both. Right, so every day in the lead-up until Christmas, of course, if you don't know by now, we are delivering a very Christmassy special message from church ministers all across the country. Each day they have a special message for you to celebrate the festive season, and here is today's offering.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 11.
Hi, I'm Chris Tufnell. I'm the vicar of Uterbridge Parish Church near Sheffield. Do you know the story of the Christmas Day Truce 1914? It's very well known. British and German soldiers of the First World War climbed out of their trenches and began to exchange gifts of chocolates and cigarettes, even playing a game of football. It's well known, and rightly so, because what a beautiful thing it is for peace to be brought into a place of conflict and war. Of course, that was supposed to be the war to end all wars. That's what they called it, but we all know it wasn't. Human history is littered with conflict. And conflict isn't just something that happens between nations, it happens between colleagues, neighbours, friends and family members. It can even happen within us. At Christmas, we remember that Jesus came into the world to bring peace. Peace between humans, but also peace between humanity and God. In a sense, the birth of Jesus was the original Christmas Day truce. The invitation is for us to climb out of our trenches and enjoy with him the peace he offers. Happy Christmas.
And you can
Everybody's
see
saying how much they love that. Liz Brewer going, well, this is lovely. It really is. If you're enjoying them, we've got a special place you can find them, haven't we?
Yeah, gbnews.com/advent. Just whilst we're here, Liz is still here with us, and with us a selection of Christmas cards you've received over the years. This one caught my eye from the then Prince Charles in 2010 with Camilla. They were on their ski. Are they skis in Scotland?
Skiing in Scotland.
And it just says from... Is that Charlie? I think it says Charlie.
No, it's actually Charles, and he does an S with a... I do a Lizzie with a kiss, kiss. He does a Charles with a...
Flourish.
Yeah, flourish at the end.
Very regal. I love it.
So
there we go.
Yeah, he wondered what the King's Christmas cards look like.
But don't you love the Shirley Bassey one?
Apparently not.
Don't you love the Dame?
Oh, sorry, Dame Shirley Bassey.
Absolutely.
There we go.
Every year, sensational. Leslie Jones.
I was just saying, though, Liz, I couldn't imagine sending a Christmas card out to my friends with a picture of me on it, but then you...
You're not Dame Shirley
Bassey. You made the point. I'm not... No, not yet, anyway.
Dame one day. Thanks so much, Liz. And stay with us, still to come. Pat Sharp, Paula London here to take us through what's making the news. See you in a sec.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Maria, potholes are the bane of everybody that uses the road, whether you're a car driver or a cyclist. As a cyclist, are even worse. How have we got into this situation where our roads are in such a bad state?
Well, part of it is to do with actually our climate. In somewhere like, say, Sweden, like the snow will fall on the ground, it will stay there for months. Whereas here we've got what's called a freeze-thaw climate, where the water comes down, then we might have a cold snap and it freezes, and the water within the pothole will then expand and make the pothole bigger. Then we might have a mild spell, and then that process repeats. So, we do actually need extra funding to acknowledge the fact that, we just live in a climate where we're sort of particularly vulnerable to potholes.
Why? I mean, the fact that this happens, these weather conditions happen, is no great surprise to anybody. Why has the problem been ignored for so long?
I think what's happened is we've had like short-term funding. So it's like, oh, there's a pothole, let's patch it up. Oh, there's another one, let's patch it up. But the patches aren't actually really that strong, so then they break down again. So, really what we need is to have roads completely resurfaced, and then they'll just be pothole-free for a very long time. And that really is how funding should be. That's the direction funding should go in, as opposed to just sort of like dribs and drabs here and there.
Do you think this government are going to be good for the motorist, or is there indeed a war on the motorist still?
The different parties come in and they've all got different policies that they wheel out, then they cancel the policies, and then there's so much lack of transparency. Like, for example, with the pothole issue, sometimes the government, whichever government is in office, will do some big showboating about how they're going to give X amount of potholes, and you still think that sounds really good.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So what is making the news? What is in the papers? Pat Sharp and Paula London are here to tell us this morning. Welcome back to both of you. Pat, what's in the eye today on coffee, which is obviously a very key part of our daily routine?
Yeah, for you guys, absolutely every morning. So coffee beans up 18%.
What?
Yeah, this is £2.70 extra per pound of coffee beans. Poor weather in Vietnam and Brazil. What's it now going to cost at a service station when you pull in for that expensive coffee and it's now going to be like 10 quid or something?
I was going to say, it's bad enough at some, I won't name the brands, but you can probably guess, bad enough at some coffee shops already.
Yeah.
A latte or a flat white, nearly, was it £4, £4.20?
Yeah, and service stations, if you know, got captive audience on the motorway, 5.5 quid, I think.
I've never drunk coffee, I drink tea.
Now, this is weird now, because I've never had a cup of tea, you've never had a cup of coffee.
You're both completely bizarre.
Yeah, we should not go out for breakfast sometime.
Hang on a minute, you've never had a cup of tea?
No.
And you've never had a cup of coffee?
Never. I just don't like the smell of coffee.
Ben's face.
And I don't need the extra energy either, really, so...
OK, she's hyper enough.
Yes.
Why have you never drunk... hang on, which one of you?
Tea.
Yeah, why have you never drunk tea?
I'll tell you where it comes from. So, I was born in '61, making me 63 now. And in the 60s, my parents would wake up with a teasmade by the side of their bed.
Oh, right.
And I would get
My
dressed...
nan had that.
Yeah, I would get dressed and ready for school, and I would smell this sort of tea. With my mum and dad have a cup of tea in bed, and I would go, that's not for them. No, so I've never had a cup of tea ever since then.
Funny.
Why no coffee?
Well, yeah. I like the smell of it, really.
There you are.
I love the smell of coffee. Almost as good as the taste.
Either way, you're in trouble now, because it's just gone up 18%.
I know. Well, everything's going up, isn't it?
Paula, what about this one about churches in Scotland have banded together to urge MSPs to avoid pitting vulnerable groups in society against each other by basically providing asylum seekers with free bus passes?
Yeah, I think it's very wrong. The average working person now has had to endure a bus fare rise, and Emma Jackson is being really inflammatory unnecessarily. She has said, Emma Jackson's Church of Scotland Public Life and Social Justice said, I would really urge all our politicians to use language which upholds human rights and human dignity for everyone in our society. And I think it's ridiculous. I mean, if you're an asylum seeker, you get so many things for free. Even in London, if you go to the Tower of London, if you're on Universal Credit, you can visit for £1, but if you work, it's £38.
So just to be clear, the church is rallying politicians in Scotland to give asylum seekers free bus passes?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, what is wrong with the church in this country? They seem to care about everybody bar Christians.
Exactly. I don't know why they can't walk like other people do, so I don't know.
Are you a Christian, Paula? I mean,
Yes,
does it
I am.
surprise you that the church is taking this position? Isn't this exactly... I mean, not to get too deep into the Christianity,
It's
this is exactly
really
what Jesus would
upsetting.
do, is it would go for the people that are sort of outcasts in a way.
Yeah, but I pray at home, so I pray at home every day to God, and God has helped me a lot, so... What they're doing, I just try not to think about. I mean, I'm very disappointed, especially in the bishop's behaviour. But my God is good to me, so, yeah.
Pat, families forking out more for Christmas lunch. You're full of all these expensive stories today.
I am just Mr. Price Rise.
Yeah, but so, I mean, Christmas dinner is going to not only cost us a fortune if we're having coffee in the morning, but what else can we expect?
Well, I think you missed a trick when you said fork out more, you see. That's very good. Yeah, I like that. No sign of the knives, but knives will be out for this because
there you go.
Instead of 18% for coffee beans, we're up 6.5% for our Christmas lunch compared to last year. Spuds, parsnips, carrots, cranberry sauce, Christmas pudding, sprouts. Sprouts have gone up. Oh, good. I don't have to buy sprouts. This is great news.
Sprouts so
I quite like them.
I think they're great.
No.
Yes.
No.
I don't like sprouts, but I love green beans and broccoli.
No, good.
I like vegetables.
Yeah, no, sprouts not for me, but either way, it's going to cost us more money. But apparently, sparkling wine remains the same price, so just have a drink.
I think that's the same for outside Christmas. I remember going for breakfast or lunch where it would come to no more than, say, 20 quid, and you'd have a decent lunch. These days, you go for lunch and it's like 40, 45, I mean...
Even now, it's not even cheap anymore. It used to be so cheap, now it's not really.
It really puts me off going out, but this is for people to have their meals at home. I don't really understand why sparkling wine would be the same price. Presumably, if a potato is going up, it's all the same issue for farmers, whether they're farming grapes or whatever it may be. It's the inconsistency that makes me suspicious.
I think coming from France, I mean, if it's sparkling wine in England, it shouldn't be more expensive, but when things come in...
OK, so this is the foreign stuff. You don't look impressed with your royal portrait, William. I thought this as well yesterday. Was this at his Christmas jumper lunch? And a little boy showed him this picture and he looked... I'm not surprised because the picture wasn't very nice, was it, Paula?
No.
Did you see it?
It just highlighted his lack of hair. But he's just left a meeting with Donald Trump, or recently, where Donald Trump was saying such wonderful things about him, and then this little boy has brought him back down to earth. Picture was terribly unflattering, but he's put it in his pocket. And, yeah, he was telling the boy how there's 45 for Christmas dinner for him in Sandringham.
Oh, there we go. We've got... He looks like, you know, a monk. You know, he's got the sort of monk's ring on the top of his head, which, yeah, and...
There we go.
Oh, there you go.
No gap between the eyes.
On Prince William's face, because he's actually doing an upside-down face, and the little boy Carson on the left... He looks like he knows exactly what he's done.
Oh, yeah.
And he feels
He's trolling the prince.
Yeah.
Yes.
How old is the lad who drew that?
I think 8. I might have made that up.
Oh.
I might have made that
I was going to say let him off, but...
Can't see his age.
He's 8. Actually, it's not that bad.
10, something like that, yeah.
He's got the beard in, his new beard, Prince William.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
I quite like it.
Oh, I don't.
You're not a fan, though, are you, Isabel?
10, yeah.
I think because of the beard, he's sort of growing the length of the hair on his head longer, which is making the bald patch more exacerbated.
Yes.
The boy was 10 years old, we're being reliably informed. Carson Hayway, cheeky little devil. Anyway.
Interesting.
So doesn't end up with a mullet, eh?
Well, exactly.
Pat, what about this one? York is planning to introduce a European-style tourist tax that could see visitors pay more for hotel rooms to help fund the city's historic attractions. I think Manchester does this already, don't they?
Yeah, I believe so, but the vibrant tourism economy of York, apparently their historic assets need to be cleaned. So that's why they're suggesting this equivalent of
buildings and so on.
York Minster and...
Yeah, 9 million visitors in 2023, so a lot of people do go there, as you say, York Minster and stuff. So it's a revenue raiser. But if you think about it and you look at, say, where we are now in London, and you've got a congestion charge and then the ULEZ possibly and the airport drop-offs and et cetera, where does it end? You know, you'll be saying, well, you know, you're going to have to pay to walk into this street or go into that one, but that one's free. And it's
yeah, but let the tourists pay rather than us.
Yeah,
that's
quite
a good
nice. Point. Yeah, that's a good point. This is a Labour council as well, but there is actually no price been fixed for it yet, but they are talking about it. And if they do it there, then they'll start to say, well, maybe we should do this in Oxford or Cambridge and so on and so forth, in other cities that also have a...
Why not, Paula? We get stung abroad, and New York has got one, have they? Tourist tax? Or certainly some Greek islands?
I mean, people don't have bottomless pits of money, but I can imagine if you don't work, there won't be a charge. Oh, actually, no, it's for international people, isn't it? I don't really agree. And I mean, I've never been to York, so I don't really know how great it is, but I don't really think it'd be worth...
York Minster's
really
stunning.
Very pretty, yeah.
It's absolutely worth a visit.
Yeah. But it depends on the price and, you know...
So Italy has a tourist tax. Tourists pay €1 to €5 per night to as much as €25 per night for the most expensive hotel rooms.
Well, we pay in Dubai as well, tourist tax for visitors, for hotels.
I think it makes sense, to be honest, if it helps to... I mean, so many of these places, Oxford or Cambridge, you literally cannot move for tourists. It was almost like a living museum. So why not capitalise on that? Why not try and make some money out of that to the advantage of what you're trying to upkeep, as you say, these incredible historic buildings that pull in all the tourists? I think it's great.
Depends what the price will be, as I say.
You don't want to deter the tourists.
Yeah.
Paula, The Sun, you picked this one out. Boxing legend Floyd Mayweather was attacked in the streets while shopping in central London. Surprise or maybe not?
This actually really worried me. I hope it's not going to set a precedent, because a lot of celebrities, I feel, are back in the Free Palestine movement almost for an easier life, because they know a baying mob of Jewish people are not going to attack them physically or verbally on the streets. And unfortunately, some of the pro-Palestine supporters can be a little, I mean, how can I put it? I mean, very verbal, but also can be physical. Thankfully, his security stepped in, but some of the mob actually pushed him and tried to punch him. And they stopped him from spending a fortune in Hatton Garden. And we really need very wealthy people like Floyd Mayweather coming to this country spending money. But he was scared off. He was going to spend a fortune.
Not a good look, eh, Pat?
You've got to be pretty brave to punch Floyd Mayweather, haven't you?
Yeah, or stupid. But it's worrying just because of your political beliefs. And he hasn't been that outspoken. He just said he supports Jewish people.
Well, that's two boxers who have been attacked or robbed in London. Amir Khan, obviously, infamously, was it last year or the year before, was robbed of his AP watch.
I think they caught the suspect in the end, actually.
So you hear all the stats on the number of phones that are being nicked in London every year. I think it was something like 70,000. They were talking about it yesterday. and it's almost not policed at all anymore.
I saw one myself. I was getting a cab back to the station. I was sitting in the cab, looking at the high street down Edgware Road. A lad was standing on his phone at the side of the street. A bike came whizzing past. Yoink! There he went.
Yeah.
Gone in a flash.
The tears that happened to me, like, I'm very dramatic anyway, but losing your phone is such a huge thing. You'd feel so violated.
Yeah, 90,000 phones a year. That's 250 a day. One of our makeup artists here was standing at a traffic light texting, and before she knew it, phone taken out of her hand. She couldn't do anything. It had everything on her whole life, all her cards, her map, she didn't know where she was going. She couldn't call her boyfriend to say, I've lost my phone. She couldn't pay for the tube. I mean, it was just total...
These people are so callous doing that to people. It's really evil.
Well, there we go. Guys, we're out of time. Pat Sharp, Paula London, more from both of them just after 8:30. Thanks for your company this morning. Thanks for your company at home as well. And let us know what you've thought so far this morning. That interview with Robert Jenrick got lots of you talking on your say this morning.
Yeah, let's take a look at your weather forecast with Ada McGibbon.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Stark contrast up and down the country today with a lot of dry weather but largely cloudy skies in the south. Meanwhile, some frost and fog first thing further north, especially through the Central Belt, around Glasgow, for example, as well as western parts of Northern Ireland. Sub-zero temperatures for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and where we've got fog first thing, well, that might not clear into the afternoon, so staying cold and with poor visibility lingering. Meanwhile, for England and Wales, cloudy skies generally, 6 to 8 Celsius in the afternoon. A keen easterly breeze along the south coast, bringing some showery rain into southern England, especially parts of South Devon and into Cornwall. But we end the day with clear skies for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland. One exception, Shetland, where it will be largely grey and damp, but dry weather for Scotland and Northern Ireland with clear skies leading to, once again, frost and fog overnight, and where we've got the fog persisting through the afternoon. That will just thicken and develop more widely overnight. England and Wales, meanwhile, largely cloudy skies remaining, and as a result, that blanket of cloud will keep things frost and fog-free, with temperatures dipping to 3 or 4 Celsius. We keep the showery rain across parts of South Devon and Cornwall. Another area of showery rain pushes into East Anglia, parts of the East Midlands, North East England. Otherwise, for many, it's a dry start to the day on Thursday. Again, frost and fog for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Some sunshine out there, particularly for parts of the Grampians, for example, Aberdeenshire, Caithness, Sutherland. But for many in the UK, it's a grey day with the lowest cloud expected across eastern parts of England and outbreaks of rain or showers occurring here. Meanwhile, temperatures staying at or around freezing across some colder parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, milder further south.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are delays of up to an hour and a quarter to Stena Line sailings between Cairnryan and Belfast after the storms, with Stena Line and Irish Ferry sailings still suspended between Holyhead and Dublin. On the Isle of Anglesey, the A5 is closed each way at Gwaltmire today for repairs to a burst water main. The M62 in Greater Manchester is partly blocked westbound at junction 21 at Milnrow. It's sloped towards and past there. The M56 in Cheshire is partly blocked eastbound by an accident between junctions 14 and 12 from the Chester services to Runcorn, causing delays. In Staffordshire, the A500 is partly blocked northbound, heading out of Stoke, where there's an accident between Port Hill Bank and Sandyford. And on the M40 in Buckinghamshire, there's a lane closed southbound where someone's broken down between junctions 2 and 1A from Beaconsfield to the M25, causing delays. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway. Good luck.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Farmers from across the country are set to descend on cities across the UK today.
They're protesting the government's proposed inheritance tax changes.
But despite threats of food strikes and shortages over Christmas, the government is standing firm.
Yes, some farmers have dubbed the Prime Minister Starmer the farmer harmer. They want the government to think again. The government at the moment are standing firm, but I'll bring you more details shortly.
The push for prisons. Angela Rayner's set to force plans for new jails on towns and villages. The move will mean the Ministry of Justice will be able to bypass councils to build on greenbelt land under new laws to tackle overcrowding. Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick dismissed the government's announcement earlier.
Despite all the fanfare in Labour's announcement today, there is not any money for new prisons. The Labour Party are admitting that there's going to be a massive shortfall in prison places in the years ahead, and they're not dealing with the heart of this problem.
Major cuts to the Met. The police chief, Sir Mark Rowley, fears 2,300 police officer jobs could be lost due to a £450 million funding black hole.
And more than half of under-25s have admitted to illegally using their phone while behind the wheel. That's according to a new survey. So, should drivers using mobile phones in cars face a ban?
And sport this morning, wins in the Champions League for Aston Villa and Liverpool, while Celtic draw. Saudi Arabia will be announced as the hosts of the 2034 World Cup today because they're up against no one. And Puma aren't too happy with Mark Cucurella chucking his boots in the bin.
Another calm start to the day, but not entirely sunny. There's some dense fog out there, and in places it could last all day. Full details coming up in the forecast shortly.
Very good morning to you. It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Ben Leo.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Massive day today for the farmers, descending on Westminster and indeed all across the country. It's an issue very close to not only their hearts, but your hearts at home. These people, of course, graft from dusk till dawn. Lots of views on gbviews.com/your say about this. Lucy, you say, never mind the blooming farmers. It's time for the government to stop inheritance tax for everyone else. It's a despicable tax. We pay taxes all of our life, and then we're taxed on the money we have already paid tax on.
Yeah, I can't disagree. Judith says, I'm totally on the side of the farmers. If supermarket shelves are empty for weeks or months, we will cope. And Alan says, I support the farmers 100% and would support them if there were strikes and there was a food shortage. This government is a bunch of activists that they haven't got a clue about governing.
And Gary, you say the whole country should get behind the farmers. They do the work many of us would shy away from, admittedly me as well. I've already said that in the past hour. They work long hours, whatever the weather, and they put food on our table. And I get the feeling, maybe, I don't want to punish myself or my loved ones, but maybe that's what they need to do, really turn the screw and go on strike. Do they need to scupper Christmas dinner or make sure the turkey isn't on your table for the government really to get the message across?
Yeah. Well, here on GB News, we really are going to be the farming channel today, really giving some decent coverage to this, as thousands of farmers right across the UK will be descending on cities across the country, many in their tractors, to protest against these proposed changes.
Last month, over 13,000 people rallied against the changes, and today, farmers are warning the proposed changes could kill British farming.
Well, they are scheduled to coincide with both PMQs and a meeting of MPs to discuss exactly what the impact will be of this inheritance tax on farmers.
But despite the protest, the government says their commitment to farmers is, quote, steadfast, and they will not change course on the policy.
Well, earlier we spoke to the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, about this.
The government have declared war on rural communities right across our country. This is an iniquitous tax. This is preventing family farmers from handing on their farm as they'd always planned to their children and their grandchildren. It's going to cause havoc across the countryside.
Well, our reporter Charlie Peters is at Birkin Manor Farm near Slough. Good to see you, Charlie. I don't know if you could hear much of the sort of flavour of the response we've had from our audience this morning, but all of them pretty much unanimously in support of the farmers. And there is this visceral sense, not only of anger, but frankly of just misunderstanding the whole rural dilemma.
Well, Isabel, Ben, what you were just describing there, that angry reaction and that show of support from around the country, that has given the farmers here at Birkin Manor Farm, which has been in an active farm for over 500 years, it's given them a lot of hope that they're doing this demonstration today and that it might cause the government to pause and reconsider. They've been urged by the Conservatives to reflect on this decision. The government say that their inheritance tax plans will only affect around 500 new farms, but the NFU, the National Farming Union, they say it could actually hit 75,000 farms. Now, behind me you can see there are dozens of farmers here. Many of them have travelled across the country. Some starting their journey last night around 11 o'clock in order to get here, just west of London, to prepare for that march into Westminster. I say march, it's more like a convoy of tractors. They're a very angry agricultural battalion of tractors. They're all gearing up now to prepare for that departure in the next 10 minutes or so. But we've been here for a few hours speaking to the farmers from across the country to get a sense of why they're doing this, why they're regularly protesting. And earlier today I spoke to some farmers and asked them, what would you say if you were in a room with Keir Starmer this morning, possibly enjoying some breakfast produced by British farmers?
Please reconsider. Please reconsider. You'll go hungry, you're going to starve this country to submission. We've survived foot and mouth, mad cow disease, BSE, but are we going to survive this Labour government?
Do the British public not want to eat produce that's produced here for them to the highest welfare and quality standards in the world? Do you not want that? I think you really, well, all the Labour just need to really consider what they're doing. Just change it. But you've just rushed into it and you're just going to ruin it for absolutely everybody.
You're listening there to Nigel and Sam, a father-son farming duo. They've also been farming in their family for hundreds of years, and they were telling me also that Sam fears he may be the last generation of farmers as a consequence of this inheritance tax plan. Now, Labour government, they've said, and many of their MPs have said in the Commons, that actually this could benefit farmers, this rise in the inheritance tax affecting those that are worth over £1 million, because they say this will help reduce energy costs. It could also benefit the NHS. It'll give more cash to the government to fill in that billions of pounds, a black hole that they refer to. But the farmers here, they've not accepted that response. And I've also spoken to another future generation of farmers. They've just completed some training, these two girls, and they worry that they're not going to be able to follow in their family's footsteps and continue the family trade.
British farmers produce some of the best produce around, and I think it makes our country very vulnerable personally if we can't produce our own food, and it would be sad to lose the British produce in the country.
I think just really think really carefully about the policy that they brought in and how they could change it and make it more affordable and make it more so that farmers can continue, because as Eleanor said, you all need a farmer 3 times a day and you wouldn't be able to function without one.
Stand back, find out what what is a farmer, stand back, have a look, and maybe come back with something to the farmers so we can work with you.
Well, Westminster is usually a place of sharp suits, but this afternoon it'll be Wellington boots and waxed jackets in SW1 as these farmers descend on Parliament to share their message, to share their concerns. And it's not just inheritance tax. They're worried about exports, they're worried about veterinary checks, lots of concerns that they want to raise. And I'll be joining that convoy live on GB News in the next 15 minutes.
Thanks, Charlie. Appreciate that. And just talking of waxed jackets, lots of viewers this morning are appreciating your own farming attire. They love your jacket. We're keen to know what the rest of the look looks like. What boots have you got on? Have you got wellies?
I'm not wearing wellies, actually. I'm wearing, I don't want to give away some free PR for the brand, but you'll see them later. They're smart. They're appropriate, trust me. I know there's, I'm not wearing loafers, if you're asking.
OK, thanks, Charlie. We'll catch up with you shortly.
OK, good stuff. Thanks very much indeed. Let's get some more on this with our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who joins us live from Westminster. Good morning again to you, Catherine. Look, just the optics of this, tractors in the capital, causing a headache for the government, but yet they seem unmoved, digging their heels in. And that's even in the face of the Institute for Fiscal Studies, who we know to be impartial, saying that there is some tinkering they could do with this policy.
Yes, the government say they are not for turning on this, and tractors in Westminster used to be very unusual, but this will be the third time this year. The police say they're expecting up to 300 tractors today in Westminster. We had them, of course, just a few weeks ago after those inheritance tax changes in the budget. We had them also under the Conservative government back in March because the farmers feel that they have had a very, very rough deal for many, many years. One of the problems is that they are squeezed by the supermarkets. They simply are making almost nothing on a lot of the food that they produce. And sure, they may be rich in terms of assets, but many of them very, very cash poor. But these inheritance tax changes are what farmers say will push many of them over the edge and out of business. And it's interesting, it's timed, of course, to coincide with PMQs. There will be a mock funeral for British farming a little bit later, but also there is a parliamentary select committee meeting this morning looking at the future of farming. Now, they will take evidence from, among others, the NFU president, Tom Bradshaw, and tax experts. And as you say, Isabel, even the Institute for Fiscal Studies, this neutral body, have said that the government should look again at this, because the government are saying, look, it's going to affect very few family farmers. You can hand on £3 million if you've got a couple with a house. And that they're investing £5 billion in British farming. But the farmers say they've got their numbers completely wrong. And you do have to wonder what it will take for the government to think again about this. Will it perhaps take some food shortages?
Thank you very much. We're joined in the studio now by political commentator Matthew Stadland to discuss this. Matthew, this is raising a paltry, in the grand scheme of things, £500 million a day, enough to fund the NHS for one day. So at a time when Keir Starmer and Steve Reid, whoever else is saying, farmers use hospitals too, farmers use schools too, we need this money to improve local infrastructure and services. When it's only going to pay for the NHS for one day, what is the point?
How many people do you think can be treated in the NHS in a single day? Have you done those maths?
Not very many with our waiting times.
No. How many do you think?
No idea.
A lot of people are treated in the NHS every single day, and a lot of people are not treated in the NHS every single day because waiting lists are sky high as a consequence, in part, of that previous government, also for other reasons as well. Our public services, we know some of them are absolutely on their knees. You are devoting a day of coverage to, yes, not particularly cash-rich farmers, for whom I have a lot of respect, grown up around farms. They work unbelievably hard, farmers, but they are asset extremely wealthy. You can, as we've been hearing, pass on up to £3 million in some cases, completely inheritance tax-free. Tell that to the doctors, or tell that to Jim, who set up a builder's merchant, who does have to pay inheritance tax. Why are we allowing special pleading for farmers? Of course they can protest. That is absolutely their right. But we are not covering the fact that more than a third of children in our country, a third of children are living in poverty, and we are worried about this tiny minority of wealthy people.
Because farmers, the products they produce, the food they put on your table are the lifeblood of this country. They're not the builders merchants who pop up some houses.
Excuse me, pop up some houses. Are you listening to yourself? We live in our houses.
They put the muesli in your bowl that you.
And what do doctors do? What do doctors do? Doctors keep us alive. They stop us from dying.
Up this land, Matthew?
We'll have to wait and see. And by the way, if there are, well, you can speculate. If there are unintended consequences, if the consequence of this consequence of this policy is that we can't sustain ourselves with farms, which, by the way, I think is highly unlikely, the government will have to face the consequences of that. But this is nonsense propaganda.
Who else is going to sustain us?
Just to be clear, I mean, you say I think that's not likely to happen. That's not very reassuring. Do you even have the figures? The government can't agree. We've got different figures from DEFRA as we do from the Treasury. There's been no impact assessment on this, and the people who do know, the people whose job this is day in, day out, are telling us loud and clear they are very poor in terms of income, but they are asset rich just in terms of having a tractor, a combine harvester.
But they can keep their can keep their farms. Now, hang on, they can keep their farms. This is about
when it comes to the winter fuel allowance, that you may have a policy here where you've seen that there are these wealthy landlords, and it's wrong that they are avoiding paying inheritance tax on that, and a lot of people would probably agree. But what you've done, you've got this completely wrong. You've miscalculated.
Not me. I'm not the government. I'm just giving you my view.
The government can't agree on the impact assessment of this, and it's the same with the winter fuel payment. And as a consequence, there are huge numbers of people, ordinary people, working people, heaven forbid, who are paying the price for this.
Sorry, huge numbers of people paying the price for this. Ben Leo just said on national television he's encouraging, effectively, the farmers to ruin the Christmas dinners of the people watching this programme so that wealthy landowners don't have to pay inheritance tax. I mean, this is astonishing.
What do you think is going to happen when farmers have to close down? Who's going to come in and take hold of those properties and the land?
Sorry, why are they going to have to close down? You're missing the point. You are making an assumption because you haven't necessarily thought this through, which is what you're accusing me of. Of course they are, because they don't want to pay inheritance tax. Who does? But if we don't pay inheritance tax, you're going to have to raise income tax. For example, let me finish my argument. You're going to have to raise income tax instead. Why should people have family farms? Let me make the point. Let me make the point, because you're going to have lots of people speaking up for the farmers today, so let me make my point. Let's take a farmer whose children, as I'm sure is the case in many farms, don't want to go into farming. Right? The assumption here is that all farmers want to hand down their farm to their children. It goes on for generations. That will be the case in some cases, but there will be plenty of farms whose children go into teaching or being nurses or doctors or whatever, or train drivers or whatever else it is, right? So then they hand the farm over. The children are already doing something else, and they just inherit this enormous amount of property which they could then sell, and there's no inheritance tax paid on it. That is completely bonkers. There will be people watching this programme this morning who did set up builders merchants, who are doctors, who might live in a £2 million home that they'd love to hand over to their children tax-free. They have to pay tax on it. Why are we making such a fuss about farmers? I say again, I've got nothing against farmers. They work unbelievably hard, but why should their children inherit millions and millions and millions of pounds tax-free when our services are on their knees?
They inherit an unpayable tax bill, many people would say, which means they can't...
They don't have a right. They don't have a right to inherit the family business. There are all sorts of family businesses that are not farms, and people don't have the right, the God-given right, or the state-given right in this country, to inherit it tax-free. We're making special pleading for farmers.
Got your message, but just as well, politically, I don't think they haven't got the nous, Labour. Why are they doing this for a paltry... Politically, it doesn't seem worth the risk reward.
You mentioned the winter fuel allowance for older people, and I've spoke out against that. Not because there aren't plenty of wealthy people who don't need £200 or £300, of course not. But because the threshold was wrong, and what they should have done in that is they should have said, if you earn a certain amount of money as a pensioner, or if you have a certain amount of wealth, then you pay it back in your tax. So I think they got that policy wrong.
Why does this government never own that? Why can they never say, we're going to change course? It's as if they think that changing the policy is in some way a weakness, but quite clearly this is just losing public support.
I suspect partly because Keir Starmer would then be called Mr. Flip-Flop endlessly by the right-wing media.
So it's a political...
protect the integrity of the government, I suppose, but on that policy I think they got it wrong. And by the way, you talked about the threshold in farming. There is an argument that the threshold is slightly too low here. There is an argument. No, I haven't conceded. There is an argument because I do have sympathy for people who've toiled on their lands all their lives, but then you have to start saying, well, what about the doctors who can't pass on their homes? What about the builders merchants, as I keep saying? Why special pleading for farmers?
I do find it interesting, though, we've got to go, but I do find it interesting how you're so passionately against this, against farmers.
I'm not against farmers.
You don't know who's going to be taking over that land. Is it going to be multinationals like BlackRock? Is it going to be Angela Rayner bulldozing over farmland to build houses? Who knows? Right, thank you, Matthew Southern, political commentator.
I'm sure that's got you going at home. Let us know what you made of all of that. And as Matthew was saying, we're hearing lots from farmers today, so very important to get the alternative perspective in that. Nevertheless, our poll of the day is, for you at home, is it time for the Prime Minister to take farmers seriously and to reverse the inheritance tax grab?
Yes, we'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure to stay tuned for that. And the final results will be announced later in Martin Daubney's show from 3 p.m.
And to cast your vote, you just need to go to gbnews.com/poll.
OK, let's move on. Avanti West Coast train managers have voted to strike for 3 days over the Christmas period.
The RMT union said that walkouts have been scheduled for the 22nd, the 23rd and the 29th of December for London to Scotland services after rejecting the train company's proposals for rest day working arrangements. Around 300 train managers are expected to join the walkouts.
But joining us now is GB News Scotland reporter Tony Maguire, who's outside Glasgow Central Station. Tony, that must be very busy where you are now. It's rush hour, 20 past 8 in the morning. What's the latest on this?
Good morning. Well, definitely a lot of these commuters are going to be here pretty much every day, Monday to Friday, but the ones who are really going to be shaking their heads this morning are those who are hoping to make that long journey back up the road or down over the Christmas break. Avanti West Coast Lines are expecting 300 managers, as you say, to walk out over the festive period, and Avanti West Coast have said that there is now going to be expected disruption. Now, this all comes as a result of these rest day proposals. Train managers work an average of about 41 hours a week, but of course staff shortages mean that sometimes they have to work a bit over that. Now, those 300 managers, they're going to walk out, as you said there, on the 22nd, 23rd and 29th of December. It's worth saying that passengers who have journey tickets for those days are able to use them on some of the days around them. Now, Mick Lynch, he's the General Secretary of RMT Union, he said that train managers are being treated unfairly compared to the senior managers who receive significant payments, but he remains ready to reach a negotiated agreement. Meanwhile, Avanti West Coast have obviously voiced their disappointment, and this comes just a few months after RMT reached a record 15% pay deal with various train operators around the country. Definitely one to watch over the Christmas period if you're planning on making that journey.
Thanks very much indeed, Tony.
Thanks, Tony. OK, time now for our massive giveaway. But before we give you the details of who's going to be having an amazing Christmas this year, get a load of our recent winners, Cliff and Julie from Essex.
They are so delighted as well, and quite rightly so. Here's what they had to say.
My name is Cliff. And my name is Julie. And we won £25,500 gift voucher and a GB News goodie bag. When my phone rang, I was on cloud nine. I couldn't even finish my job. Amazing, just the best feeling ever. We can get everything we want. We can buy presents for friends and family. I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it. But we're glued to GB News. It's the best station ever. Merry Christmas, GB News! We love you!
Oh, we love you too, and indeed all our viewers at home. But if you want to get your hands on that kind of money and more, double that.
Double it, yeah,
£50,000 in tax-free cash is up for grabs.
Yeah, here's how.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Just to say thank you for your comments. We've been enjoying those in the last few moments. I think most of you were sort of shouting back at Matthew with us there. So, yeah, keep those thoughts coming in. We're reading them all. We haven't always got time to read them all out, but, yeah, thank you for those.
Yeah, thank you. Still to come, should you face a ban for driving on your mobile phone? I think you already do face a ban. Yeah. 6 points, isn't it? 6 points. And if you've just passed your test, first or second year, if you get 6 points, then you lose your licence anyway. But apparently a new survey shows that young people, more than half, plead guilty. They're not been in court, but admit to using their phone behind the wheel.
So dangerous.
Back in just a sec.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
It seems that the younger generation's interest in literature is waning. Academics argue that educational policies have failed to encourage reading for pleasure, contributing to declining numbers of English literature students and a shift towards young adult books rather than classic novels. According to 2023 figures from the National Literacy Trust, the number of 8 to 18-year-olds who say they enjoy reading has sunk to its lowest level for almost 20 years, with a quarter fewer reading each day over that same time period. To share more with us about this topic, I'm joined now by the journalist Charlotte Lytton. Charlotte, welcome back. Lovely to talk to you again. Tell us your perspective on this issue. What is happening?
Well, speaking to academics, we can't deny, it seems, that there is a big problem here, and it starts right at school. As you read there, young children simply don't enjoy reading for pleasure as they did before. We can't deny that is also a massive part because of smartphones, because kids now are faced with all of these things vying for their attention. They just don't have to sit down and entertain themselves with a long book and nothing else as they did before. As we see from those figures with people going to study humanities at university, the decline is just going all the way because people simply are not interested in reading for pleasure as they were.
Do you get any feeling that education policy or that teachers are taking steps to counter this?
Well, there is a review of the curriculum going ahead right now, but school is a huge part of it. One of the things that has come up in this conversation is whether teachers now are dealing with crowd control, which means they can't simply encourage reading for pleasure because they're simply trying to get a hold of the students they have.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Sneak peek of us there through the sting.
Oh.
Now we'll move on.
Road.
More than half of young drivers have admitted, get this, to illegal phone use whilst behind the wheel. That's according to a new survey.
It's quite shocking, really, isn't it? 55% of motorists aged under the age of 25 said that they've made and received voice calls without using hands-free technology whilst driving.
So we're asking today, should there be a ban on drivers who use their phones? To debate this, we're joined by Policy and Standards Director at road safety charity I Am, Road Smart, Nicholas Lies, and motoring journalist Amanda Stretton. Good morning to you both. Thanks for joining us. Nicholas, I guess you do get banned if you tot up enough points. I think it's 6 points now for being caught. But the argument now is, if you're caught with your phone, should it just be an outright ban? What do you think?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is 6. If you get 6 points within the first 2 years of your licence, then you will lose your licence. So particularly when it comes to younger drivers, where we see that this survey has revealed that there is a huge problem, that is a real cause for concern. I think in terms of an outright ban, our view is that there should be a review of the current penalty system. Now, some of our members, for example, support confiscation of phones if people are caught. So that could be an alternative. But certainly we should be looking at maybe a £500 fine and 6 points on the licence rather than an outright ban, at least initially.
Amanda, we've got a fantastic advert, actually, that we play here on GB News, which shows how your concentration gets affected when you start using your phone. And you might think that you can multitask, and we're all capable of a little bit of multitasking. We've got people talking in our ears while we're trying to speak and all that kind of thing. But actually, there's plenty of science and evidence to show that you basically go completely into your own little world and your reactions are impaired. Is this about educating the young? Because that message doesn't seem to be getting through.
Well, absolutely. I mean, just to be clear, I am not an advocate for using your phone whilst driving. However, I'm not sure that time and resource needs to be spent on reviewing the policy here, because whereas Nicholas is right, it's a huge problem of the young drivers who are actually killed whilst they're actually driving their car. Mobile phones are only a small portion of that. The largest contributing factor is actually speed and driving under the influence. And I think that is actually something we should be focusing more on, rather than worrying about the sort of low-hanging fruit, so to speak. Personally, I would rather see the money spent on improving the roads to make them safer by increasing signage, trimming hedges so that you can actually see the road signs, and sorting out potholes.
Yeah, the amount of times I've driven towards a roundabout and you can't give a preview glance to the right because there's so many shrub and trees blocking the way. Nicholas, what do you make of this suggestion that maybe we should even ban hands-free devices completely from cars, so no phone use at all, even if it's Bluetooth and hands-free?
Yeah. Well, our view is that when you get into a vehicle, you should minimise the level of distraction that you have inside the vehicle. And if that means that you can't concentrate with a hands-free device, then you should avoid using it. Now, we're not calling for an outright ban on a hands-free device, because clearly there are always going to be some level of distraction in the vehicle, whether it's your passengers, pets, etc., that you have to try and manage. But at the same time, I do appreciate what's being said about speed and some of the other contributory factors, but the reality is it's very difficult for the police to be able to directly look at what was the primary cause of a collision when it comes to mobile phones. And certainly when we look into the stats in more detail, we can see distraction inside the vehicle has a much higher collision rate.
Yeah, and Amanda, I don't know if you've got children, but I think of my own kids squabbling in the back, trying to break up fights, passing snacks, whatever it might be. That can be a huge distraction, and no one's talking about banning kids in the car.
Well, exactly. And I think education is actually the key here. It's making people aware. I'm sure you remember there were horrible adverts many years ago warning people about the speed and drink driving and wearing seatbelts. Those were really impactful. And I think education is a far greater motivator to actually stop these young people. My children are both of driving age, so they would very much fall under this ban if it were to be implemented. And I'm glad to say they don't use their mobile phones. But I think the other interesting point here is that a lot of young people who are driving cars are driving older, less expensive cars who might not have Bluetooth connectivity. Yes. So, you've got to consider the fact that also their cars are not necessarily Bluetooth enabled as well, which is another factor. So I think educating them is more important than just this sort of hard hand of a ban. I think that will be more impactful.
OK. Amanda Stretton, Nicholas Lyes, thanks for your different opinions on that. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Still to come, Coity will be here with all the sports news, including the Champions League results from last night. Back in just a tick.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are delays of up to 2 hours to P&O sailings between Care and Ryan and Larne, and up to an hour and a quarter to Stena Line sailings between Care and Ryan and Belfast. The M1 in South Yorkshire is partly blocked northbound by a breakdown just after junction 38 at Huddersfield, causing queues. On the M62 in Greater Manchester, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident between junctions 21 and 20 from Milne Road to Rochdale, with queues from junction 22 at Rishworth Moor. On the M56 in Cheshire, there's a lane closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 14 and 12 towards Runcorn, with queues from junction 15 for the M53. Stena Line and Irish Ferry sailings remain suspended between Holyhead and Dublin. On the M4 in Swansea, there's a lane closed westbound at junction 45 at Unnersvorgan after an accident, with queues from junction 44 at Llansamlet, and there are delays of up to an hour to the FDS sailings between Dover and Dunkirk.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. I'm Nana Akwe. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Paul Coit is here. He's going to have a bit more time this hour because we had to make way for Robert Jenrick last hour. So we'll give you the full...
Honestly, really? I mean,
time this
he
morning.
was even going, look, come on, just tell me how Liverpool got.
He was like, the biggest surprise of the day, Saudi Arabia.
Yes, exactly. Well, we'll do that in a second.
Okay.
A quick word about Liverpool, who beat Girona yesterday in the Champions League. Arne Slot was not happy with their performance, though. Were you on it?
We're not aggressive enough. So every time we lost the ball, they could just almost every time go all the way to our goal, having a shot or a blocked shot, and then we could attack again. So hardly any control at all over the game. Maybe the second half was a bit better, but yeah.
He's just a little bit of powder on the head there, didn't he?
Stop.
Well, I know, but she was very... It was those lights. I was blaming the lights. Mo Salah scored, got a penalty. Dinamo Zagreb 0, Celtic 0, so another draw for Celtic, so they're still in with us.
Is that a good result? I don't keep tabs on Scottish football, really.
I think it is. I mean, it's another
home.
Champions League point. They're 17th in the table. We know that how many... Right, so in the group, how many qualify to go into the knockout?
28?
No, 8. Close. 9 to 24 in the playoff, 25 to 32 eliminated. Leipzig 2, Aston Villa 3, so very good result for Aston Villa.
So you did so much better in the 6. I think it's just several hours in.
I had a different question in the 6.
Yes. You asked me and I didn't ask you. That was the difference, I think.
As I keep saying, third day I've said it, the Champions League format is ridiculous. Go back to the groups. Why change it?
I don't know. I think it works okay because the idea is that you don't have the dead rubbers at the end. That's the idea of that, is that it will keep it interesting. But anyway, Arsenal play Monaco tonight. Juventus versus Manchester City will also be this evening.
Okay.
Right, so the World Cup.
OK, the biggest surprise.
Where are we going?
Well, there's actually 2, because 2 of them are going to be announced, but neither of them are contested, especially Saudi Arabia in 2034. So I wonder why. I mean, it's going to be, I'll be honest with you, I mean, 2034, the stadiums will be amazing, the facilities will be amazing, but, of course, it's all about the cash.
I was going to say, what is it with these Middle Eastern countries, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, where they get awarded the bids? These
I think the thing is,
countries.
I think Gianni Infantino looks at those countries and just thinks, well, it's a real untapped market, and maybe they need something, and because maybe football needs to grow there, and I'm sure there's all good, or it could be something to do with the huge amounts of
money. Are
money.
offering so much cash because they're trying to sort of open up their doors to multiculturalism. And
that's maybe what it is, or it's just all about how much money they're going to make. I think we know the answer. But I'll tell you, though, the other one is Morocco, Spain and Portugal, which is where the 2030 World Cup is going to be, with games played in Uruguay, Argentina and Paraguay.
Hang on, sorry, say that again. The World Cup is going to be in Spain, Morocco, Portugal, but some games in South America.
Yes, but the reason for that is because it's the 100th anniversary of the first World Cup, which was in Uruguay, so they've decided they're going to do that.
Why don't they just hold the whole thing in Uruguay?
Well, that kind of would be the sensible idea, wouldn't it?
Who's in charge of all these format changes?
It's this man called Gianni Infantino. He's the man who runs FIFA. There were some very strange people that were in charge of FIFA before, and then it had to be reformed, and now he's come in and, well, is there any change? I'm not really so
sure. Put Wenger in charge. Give Arsene the job.
Yeah.
He'll sort it out.
I think.
What's going on with Puma?
Yeah.
Now, this
Don't tell me they're getting rid of their big cat.
Well, no, the cat's
okay,
there.
good.
But it's Marc Cucurella. Marc Cucurella, when he played for Chelsea against Tottenham Hotspur, he slipped over twice. For the first 2 goals that went in, he slipped over. And what he did, talk about bad workmen blaming their tools, he slipped over, but he blamed the boots. So after the second one went in, he went over and he made a big deal about taking his boots off, looking at the kit man, give me my boots. Then there's a picture, I don't know whether we've got this, of the boots that are actually in the bin. There we are. And there he's thrown his 220-pound Future 8 Puma boots in the bin.
Is he sponsored by Puma?
Yeah, because the thing is, anybody that wears boots, they're always paid to wear those boots. So how do you reckon Puma are feeling about that?
Could you imagine the marketing meeting this morning?
Yeah.
Right, guys, what's happened in the last 24 hours?
That's in Nike Towers where they...
Yeah, how are we going to turn this one around? So, they should come up with something, because really, it wasn't the boots, it was Cucurella. But I think we mentioned before about Puma and Adidas and the wars that they've had, because there were 2 brothers that founded both of them, Adi and Rudolf Dassler, and they argued between the 2 of them. Both worked for Adidas, and then Rudy left and said, I'm going to start my own footwear company. He started Puma, and Adi kept with Adidas, and then they both grew to become the biggest sportswear companies in the world.
I do love that story.
It's an incredible story.
It's the equivalent of somebody taking a penalty, skying it, and then checking out the penalty spot and saying,
of course it is.
What happened there with the turf?
It's blame the boots. It's
nothing to do with me.
These are slippery. It's like... But when he changed the boots, they were almost exactly the same studs on them, but...
Were the replacement boots Puma boots?
You know what? I'm pretty sure they would be.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll just go,
I'm surprised Puma haven't dumped him this morning for that.
I know, I wouldn't be at all surprised.
He's probably got enough money anyway, doesn't he?
I think he's OK, yeah. I think what they used to do years and years ago, though, is that they used to have boot fairies. They used to put the boots outside the hotels. So even in the '66 World Cup, you'd have black boots and they would paint on either 3 stripes or the Puma stripe, so it was whoever got there first, Puma or Adidas, and they would put the money in, and then they'd say, can you wear these boots? So a lot of them weren't actually their boots, but they had...
Did you play football at school, or...?
I did, I had a boot fairy as well, yeah. Mine were Woolworths boots, but they weren't really paying too much. Yeah, remember...
I remember Woolworths.
They had 3 stripes, but they weren't quite the Adidas ones.
Oh, those were the days.
Gola.
Adidas Predators were mine.
I bet you did.
Pretty
cool.
Yeah, Woolies, pick and mix.
Adidas Predators at school?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Beckham.
Very impressed.
Bex. Thanks, Coity.
Mine was more Stanley Matthews.
Yeah, a bit more your era.
Oof.
That was my joke.
All right, let's move on, shall we? Thanks, Coity. Pat Sharp, Paula London are going to be here to take us through what's making the papers. See you in a sec.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
After the Hollywood ending that Wrexham Football Club have got, can Chorley FC benefit from a bit of the old celebrity magic dust?
I can't see why not. The guys have been down a few times now, and when they do come down, obviously they're bringing that with them. A little town like Chorley doesn't see much of the charts and big stars. So it's really nice to see them, and we always welcome them when they do come down.
And Mark, give us a flavour of the level of football. I understand you're in the National League North, right? That's 6 rungs down from the top flight. I mean, you're only just down the road from Manchester City, right? But I mean, give us a flavour of the 2 different worlds between your club and Man City.
Our players are all part-timers. So we've got kind of fitness coaches, we've got teachers, we've got all kinds of players who have full-time jobs alongside playing. Our average crowd is probably a tenth of what you get at Man City, probably even less than that. We get about 1,500 on a home game. The thing is, we know where we are and we understand where we are, and we are a real community club. Tonight, I'm ready now. I'm off to Marine, so off over to Merseyside. Playing the likes of Liverpool and Everton over on Merseyside would be kind of a dream come true. But we know where we are. We would just love to get to the Football League. So teams like Salford, Stockport County were in our division a couple of years ago, all flying now in the Football League. We just want to do the same. We sat down with the board last year and they told us the vision for the future, and that vision most definitely is that we want to be a Football League club. When we went to the Premier League, I know the boys have been saying that they 30 years we'll be in the Premier League and winning it. Well, let's hope we are, and let's hope I'm still around to see that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, Pat Sharp and Paula London are with us to go through the day's top stories. Welcome back, you two.
Thank you.
Pat, should we start with you this time, as Paula did the honours last time? What have you got in store? The Daily Star. Rides for 10p. What's this?
Well, this is quite extraordinary for the fact that apparently in Morrison's there are 50 character rides. Now, is this a supermarket or a fun fair? Because 50 rides. It's like, whoa, I'll go on that one now. Oh, do you want to get some bread? No time. Another ride. I mean,
like Peppa Pig and things like that.
Yeah, Bob the Builder, apparently Rory the racing car, etc., etc. And they've reduced them from £1.50 to 10p, which is good. I reckon they were more than 10p even in my day.
I think they should be banned from supermarkets, those rides, because you try and do some shopping, you take the kids along, and there's just complete distraction. You know.
I don't have children, so I don't know.
No. I think it's quite useful when I'm at the till. Go and sit in the Peppa Pig thing and I can crack on.
Yeah.
I think
now it's 10p, I don't let them pay. I just make them sit in it.
There
you go.
They did something good rather than like blatantly profiteering. Like that's what they sort of did during lockdown. So I'm happy they're doing something good.
I think when it says 50 rides, I mean, I think that means in general there are 50 different ones, but they don't have 50 in every store. There's probably 2 or 3 in each store. Okay. But, you know, different names and different styles. But either way, at 10p a go, that could help you with your Christmas shopping, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Because you spend more on the actual food.
Bargain basement. Paula? Banksy, you like this one? What's Sadiq Khan?
Yeah, I'm very upset with Sadiq Khan. He never really pleases me. But basically, there was a Banksy mural painted by a bridge, and it was there from August, and all of a sudden last week, obviously Sadiq's the head of the TfL, so it's obviously on him. He has got a group of people with high-pressure washer just to destroy it, basically. It was a picture of 3 monkeys, and a lot of people were visiting it and were liking it, but he's decided it had to go because he thought copycat people could try to do some graffiti that wouldn't be as good. But I think that's a bit of a shame. I think he should have left it, really.
So it wasn't Banksy, it was...
It was Banksy.
It was a Banksy?
Yes. And he decided just to... I don't know why, just to destroy it, basically. And
That's
he said...
outrageous.
Yeah, he said the reason he's doing it...
The amount of money he could have made from that mural if he'd have...
He said it could inspire other graffiti artists, but I think it's terrible to do that. It was deliberately destroyed by Transport for London.
Are you a fan, Pat, of Banksy's work?
Well, I'm more of a fan of Banksy than Sadiq Khan, absolutely. I've got a petrol-guzzling car, I'm afraid.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. But I think it's not good. I mean, should Banksy have if you or I did that, we'd probably be in trouble for it. But
he doesn't have carte blanche to do what he likes, but it does seem so sometimes.
No, but if you're being a bit shrewd, as Isabel said, you would maybe try and carefully remove it to sell on or whatever, because you could raise at least 6 figures doing that.
Instead of saying, get off my bridge.
Yeah. Let's talk about Ryan Reynolds, somebody we all love, perhaps in contrast to Sadiq Khan, around this table anyway. And he has helped tourism earnings in Wrexham by more than double since he bought the football club.
Yeah.
Not surprised. He's a bit of a superstar, isn't he?
He is. I mean, in 2020, 49 million on tourism, now up to 179 million in total, actually. So it's almost tripled it. And visitor number is up 21%. I think the Welcome to Wrexham documentary has really helped.
I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, really good.
And actually really painted the locals in a really great light. You could see that this was a community that were really looking for some injection of something, and they've totally made the most of it. And it's a very touching story, actually.
So we all need basically a Ryan Reynolds in every town and city in this country now to inject a bit of interest, I suppose, as well. And then, you know, everybody's just feeling good about the town, aren't they? I did a gig in Wrexham on New Year's Eve many years ago, and it was a fun night because it's New Year's Eve, but I looked around and it did look a bit, you know, dilapidated, and now I think it's on the rise because of that. That's great.
I imagine house prices will go up as well because it's on the map now internationally. Could be quite cool.
And right on the border of England and Wales.
Yeah, and it will attract, you know, hopefully wealthy footballers, management, all of their families, the schools, and all the rest of it benefit from that.
Yeah, it rolls on, doesn't it? Spirals.
Elsewhere, a D-Day nursing heroine has marked her 103rd birthday. Can you guess her secret? Well, it's in front of you, actually, isn't it?
Vino, wine. I'm quite partial to a glass of wine as well, actually, but not Chardonnay.
A glass of Chardonnay, or 2, she says, a day.
This is Jean Grabaski, and she's 103. She says, I'd say a glass of wine or 2. But she does also point out in her care home in Cambridgeshire that she's always taken exercise as well. So I think that's quite important.
A key balance.
So she's running to the wine shop.
Yeah.
Do you want? It's not on your list, guys, but I've just clocked this feature on the front of the Telegraph's features pull-out, the sport pull-out, about... got to be careful because there's an active case in New York, but the New York shooter, who... the Telegraph, and we asked the question yesterday, Isabel, how the left have turned a killer into a pin-up. The social media frenzy over Luigi Mangione, charged with the murder of US healthcare boss Brian Thompson, reveals a chilling doublethink. And this is the picture. This is six-pack abs and...
Can I just point out that they say how the left turned him into a pin-up, but it's been the Telegraph and the Mail that have been leading with this story, so that's definitely not the left.
Is it relevant, Paula, that this guy...
I think it's a bit grotesque, personally.
I think it's truly sickening.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I thought that he was wearing a prosthetic mask. You know, the picture that the NYPD was circulating? Because more and more people use these now in America, and I think more criminals are going to do that. But some of the pictures look very different, but I mean, he's just heinous. He's a cold-blooded killer. What's sexy about that?
Well, he's innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, sorry,
he's through trial, but I mean, do you get this, Pat? Do you understand the fascination with this story? I mean, does it make a difference that he's a good-looking guy, had a good education, come from a well-off family? Well, does it add to the story?
It doesn't add to the story, no. It's just people's fascination with social media from this, because they've seen him and he's out there about it, so people will make a comment on it, but it just seems a very odd thing.
Well,
it's a really bad
yesterday that I think, you know... We've seen films, haven't we, about Ted Bundy and these kind of people who have committed terrible crimes but look sort of, well, attractive.
Well, he did have fans, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a huge fan club. And you think of Amanda Knox, who was acquitted for her part in a sex game gone wrong in Italy. Foxy Noxy, she was dubbed. So I think people are surprised that someone who's accused, innocent, as you say, until proven guilty, could be attractive. But just goes to show evil can look in any shape, form or colour.
Yeah, you just reminded me. A friend of mine contacted me about a month ago and he said, what do you think I should do? And I was like, what do you mean? He was asked to work in a museum, like all about serial killers, where people visit and people that love serial killers. It was in London and he didn't want to do it because he thought too many weird people would want to go to a museum.
There you go.
So some people do like... But obviously, he's innocent at the moment, but some people that have been charged with crimes like that.
Paula, can we talk about Sarah Jessica Parker? And just like that, from Sex and the City, she's become a Booker Prize judge. What gives her the qualification to be a book...
well, I think you're going to be surprised, because I was like, what does she know about that? But apparently she's published 168 books, and she's also a TV... Yes, I was very surprised. And most people just know her from Sex and the City. I've never watched Sex and the City, but obviously I know her from there. And she's also a TV producer. I had no idea. So she actually does have the credentials because obviously the Booker Prize judging is, it's a great role to have. But yeah, she's published 168 books. I was very surprised.
I wonder what she makes of middle-class fairy porn, which, according to the Telegraph front page today, middle-class women are hooked on it. And I read the story inside the paper. It said that romantasy, which is sort of romantic fantasy genre, has become Spotify's top audiobook of 2024. It's called A Court of Thorn and Roses. Has anyone read it around the table here?
No.
There's a fantastic quote that they gave, which was about how it's a guilty pleasure. They said, "For me, this is the literary equivalent of a dirty takeaway. Lots of pleasure, a little bit of shame, and something you look forward to getting home to all day." So there you go.
I don't know, I'm not going to comment on that.
Fairy porn is the future.
I'd rather have a takeaway, to be honest.
I've never heard of fairy porn, so...
Well, you have now.
Yes.
Get yourself on Google later on.
Don't know where to go after that.
Take away.
Take it away. Yeah. Well, I think we just say goodbye, to be perfectly honest. So, Pat Sharp, it's been a pleasure. Thank you from the fame of Funhouse and all of the joy you brought us in the 90s. Well, it was 89 to 2000. You had a good old run on that.
We did.
And to GB News, lovely to have you with
us.
And
Isabel.
Paula, always fabulous to have you as well.
Thanks both. We'll be catching up with the farmer situation, the protests in London next. But first, let's get your forecast with Aidan McGivern.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Stark contrast up and down the country today with a lot of dry weather but largely cloudy skies in the south. Meanwhile, some frost and fog first thing further north, especially through the central belt, around Glasgow, for example, as well as western parts of Northern Ireland. Sub-zero temperatures for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and where we've got fog first thing, well, that might not clear into the afternoon, so staying cold and with poor visibility lingering. Meanwhile, for England and Wales, cloudy skies generally, 6 to 8 Celsius in the afternoon. A keen easterly breeze along the south coast, bringing some showery rain into southern England, especially parts of South Devon and into Cornwall. But we end the day with clear skies for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland. One exception, Shetland, where it will be largely grey and damp, but dry weather for Scotland and Northern Ireland with clear skies leading to, once again, frost and fog overnight, and where we've got the fog persisting through the afternoon. That will just thicken and develop more widely overnight. England and Wales, meanwhile, largely cloudy skies remaining, and as a result, that blanket of cloud will keep things frost and fog-free, with temperatures dipping to 3 or 4 Celsius. We keep the showery rain across parts of South Devon and Cornwall. Another area of showery rain pushes into East Anglia, parts of the East Midlands, North East England. Otherwise, for many, it's a dry start to the day on Thursday. Again, frost and fog for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Some sunshine out there, particularly for parts of the Grampians, for example, Aberdeenshire, Caithness, Sutherland. But for many in the UK, it's a grey day with the lowest cloud expected across eastern parts of England and outbreaks of rain or showers occurring here. Meanwhile, temperatures staying at or around freezing across some colder parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, milder further south.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are delays of up to 2.5 hours to P&O Irish Sea sailings between Cairnryan and Larne, with delays of up to an hour and a quarter to Stena Line sailings between Cairnryan and Belfast. On the M56 in Cheshire, there's a lane closed eastbound after an accident between junctions 14 and 12 towards Runcorn, with queues from junction 15 for the M53. Stena Line and Irish Ferry sailings between Holyhead and Dublin are still suspended. The M25 in Buckinghamshire is blocked clockwise by an accident by the Chalfont Viaduct, a mile or so off the junction 16 for the M40, with queues from junction 15 for the M4. On the M4 west of London, there's a lane closed eastbound after an accident at junction 3 at Heston, with queues from junction 4 at Heathrow. There are delays of up to an hour and a quarter to the FDS sailings between Dover and Dunkirk. And in Cornwall, buses replace trains between Newquay and St Austell for emergency engineering work. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Imagine getting a call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning to you. Furious farmers from across the country are set to descend on cities all across the UK today.
They're protesting the government's proposed inheritance tax changes.
But despite threats of food strikes and shortages over Christmas, the government is standing firm.
Yes, they've dubbed the Prime Minister Starmer the farmer harmer, and with up to 300 tractors expected in Westminster today, but the government at the moment shows no sign of changing policy.
The push for prisons. Angela Rayner is set to force plans for new jails on towns and villages. The move will mean the Ministry of Justice will be able to bypass councils to build on green belts under new laws to tackle overcrowding. A Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, dismissed the government's announcement.
Despite all the fanfare in Labour's announcement today, there is not any money for new prisons. The Labour Party are admitting that there's going to be a massive shortfall in prison places in the years ahead, and they're not dealing with the heart of this problem.
Major cuts to the Met. Police Chief Sir Mark Rowley fears 2,300 police officer jobs could be lost due to a £450 million funding black hole.
Another calm start to the day, but not entirely sunny. There's some dense fog out there, and in places it could last all day. Full details coming up in the forecast shortly.
It's 9:01. Thanks for your company today. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ben Leo, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Lots of you have been getting in touch. Thank you so much through Your Say on a whole variety of topics, it has to be said. Lots on farmers, and we've been reading those out. But also, we were talking about Christmas cards earlier on and whether or not the tradition should be continued. Lots of people just don't bother anymore, and I have to say sometimes I am guilty of that. But Christine has got in touch to say postage has skyrocketed. She says she sends less than she used to. Sue says Christmas cards mean a lot to older folk, especially the ones who live alone. Something like a Christmas card gives a lot of joy. It also, I find, in my experience of my parents' world anyway, that it also creates a bit of a drama. If somebody hasn't sent them a Christmas card, it's like, oh, we're off the Christmas card list.
It's kind
the
of
stress that comes with it.
It's kind of the worst crime, isn't it? If you miss someone, it's the silent intent in that. If you're not on the Christmas card list, that's the relationship finished. Somebody's put here, Rebecca. You said, "Good morning." They're complimenting your dress, actually, your attire.
You.
But the serious point is, I've not sent a card in about 30 years, and the only cards I get now are commercial ones. Why bother? Too much extra waste of paper.
Well, Adam says £1.65 for a stamp. It's insane. And Jane says, I think people are missing the point about Christmas cards. Most of us love them, but it's the cost of postage that's killed them off. Isn't that sad?
Yeah, it is sad. I sent a parcel, some documents. Is it? Next day track and trace, is that a thing? Or was that the COVID thing?
That's COVID, yeah.
Signed for.
Next day delivery,
Signed for.
yeah.
Sorry, COVID is imprinted on my brain. Hell of a couple of years, wasn't it? £9 for signed for next day.
Was it high value?
It's just some contracts.
Oh, interesting.
No, it didn't weigh anything, wasn't worth anything.
Right, just a paper, yeah.
It's just like £10. I thought it was quite pricey.
Yeah, gosh, OK. Well, look, we're going to turn to our top story this morning, and it will remain the top story on the channel throughout the course of the day. Thousands of farmers from across the UK will again be descending on cities across the country, many in their tractors, to protest against Labour's proposed inheritance tax change that they announced in their controversial budget.
Last month, over 13,000 people rallied against the changes, but today farmers are warning the proposed changes could kill British farming for good.
and the protest is scheduled to coincide with both PMQs and a meeting of MPs to finally discuss what possible impact this could have on farmers.
But despite the protests, the government says their commitment to farmers is steadfast and they won't change course on the policy.
Well, earlier we got the thoughts of the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, on this.
Have declared war on rural communities right across our country. This is an iniquitous tax. This is preventing family farmers from handing on their farm as they'd always planned to their children and their grandchildren. It's going to cause havoc across the countryside.
GB News reporter Charlie Peters has been with the farmers this morning on the ground, starting at Birkin Manor Farm near Heathrow as they head into central London for the protests.
2026 is when Labour's inheritance tax plan for farms is set to come in. When it was announced in the budget, it had an extremely sharp reaction from the farming community. And we're going to see some of that agricultural anger today with a convoy of tractors marching and driving onto Westminster, where they will deliver their anger directly to Parliament. I'll be live on GB News with the convoy as it drives into London. Stay with us. I've got to get to ride.
And we will be checking in with Charlie Peters live from his tractor very shortly.
Love that. OK, let's get the thoughts now of GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster, who joins us live from Westminster. Catherine...
no tractor. Disappointing. Yeah. Come on, Catherine.
No barber jacket either, Catherine. Just kidding. The government, of course, Keir Starmer, they've said, you know, they're not going to change policy, despite the PR, despite the political goodwill they appear to have lost with this policy.
Yes, they call him Starmer the farmer harmer, but the government shows no sign of budging. And tractors in Westminster was a really incongruous sight, but the police are expecting up to 300 today, and they're going to be beginning to arrive in the next half hour or so when the Prime Minister is driven from number 10 over to Parliament for PMQs. They will be there, a very visible reminder that many in the farming community are deeply angry and outraged about the measures that the government introduced in the budget. Now, it's worth saying this will be the third time farmers have protested this year. They were also in Westminster back in March under the Conservative government because farmers feel that they've been very poorly treated for very many years, frankly. One of the issues is the fact that supermarkets squeeze them so much that they make almost nothing on many of the products that they produce. So this inheritance tax change is seen as the thing that's basically tipped many of them over the edge. And at the same time this morning, there's going to be a parliamentary committee meeting on the future of farming. They will be taking evidence from the NFU president, also from tax experts, because it's not just the farmers that are complaining. Even the Institute for Fiscal Studies are saying that the government need to look at this again. The Treasury figures and the Department of the Environment figures in terms of who's going to affect it do not even match. So the government say they're behind farming. They say they're investing £5 billion in it. They say that they're giving $340 million to the rural community just in the last week. But that is not being felt by the farming community, and very many family farms worrying that they're going to have to sell up.
Thanks very much indeed. A little bit earlier on, you might have seen this. We had a fairly heated discussion with the political commentator Matthew Stadlen. Have a listen in, because by the end of it, and we may not show the full clip now, but you can find it online, he pretty much did concede, didn't he, that the government actually might have got the thresholds all wrong on this. But let's have a listen to what he told us about an hour ago.
Here is that all farmers want to hand down their farm to their children. It goes on for generations. That will be the case in some cases, but there will be plenty of farms whose children go into teaching or being nurses or doctors or whatever, or train drivers or train drivers or whatever else it is, right? So then they hand the farm over. The children are already doing something else, and they just inherit this enormous amount of property which they could then sell, and there's no inheritance tax paid on it. That is completely bonkers. There will be people watching this programme this morning who did set up builders merchants, who are doctors, who might live in a £2 million home that they'd love to hand over to their children tax-free. They have to pay tax on it. Why are we making such a fuss about farmers? I say again, I've got nothing against farmers. They work unbelievably hard, but why should their children inherit millions and millions and millions of pounds tax-free when our services are on their knees?
Point, having watched that, that the comparison with doctors is just such a false, I suppose, example, really, because not only did they earn a fortune compared to farmers, which they're then able to invest in whatever it might be to make money on it, it's a complete and utterly different situation to farmers who earn very little, can take no holiday, can't go on strike, and, you know, if they don't go to work, what do we eat?
It's about 30k a year farmers get on average as a salary. Once it's all said and done, when you consider the time they get up in the morning, they're grafting all day until dawn, they do it day after day. As you said, they can't take holidays.
GPs or doctors on £250,000 as a standard. So, you know, it's not comparison.
The equivalent is about 35 grand a year, which, for the hours they put in, isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things. And my point to Matthew was, I was trying to say to him before he kind of shouted me down, was who do you think is going to come and take this land once the families who can't afford to pay that inheritance tax bill, what's going to happen to it? He didn't know, which to me was astounding, because if it's just going to be beautiful agricultural land which is bulldozed by, I don't know, Angela Rayner wanting to build some nasty Toy Town new build estates, or is it going to be BlackRock or some multinationals who form a centralised conglomerate of farming in the United Kingdom? Who knows? Nobody knows the answer to it, and it hasn't really been thought through.
OK, listen, we're going to dial things down a little bit and get in the festive spirit. We're both off to nativities today. Our children are in their festive, nativities today. I've got a narrator, you've got a...
He's an angel, my boy, in more ways than one.
Oh, there you go. So as we count down to Christmas Day today, we are hearing from church ministers across the country, and every day they have a special message just for you.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 11.
Hi, I'm Chris Tufnell. I'm the vicar of Uterbridge Parish Church near Sheffield. Do you know the story of the Christmas Day Truce 1914? It's very well known. British and German soldiers of the First World War climbed out of their trenches and began to exchange gifts of chocolates and cigarettes, even playing a game of football. It's well known, and rightly so, because what a beautiful thing it is for peace to be brought into a place of conflict and war. Of course, that was supposed to be the war to end all wars. That's what they called it, but we all know it wasn't. Human history is littered with conflict. And conflict isn't just something that happens between nations. It happens between colleagues, neighbours, friends and family members. It can even happen within us. At Christmas, we remember that Jesus came into the world to bring peace. Peace between humans, but also peace between humanity and God. In a sense, the birth of Jesus was the original Christmas Day truce. The invitation is for us to climb out of our trenches and enjoy with him the peace he offers. Happy Christmas.
We need a bit of peace in the world as well, don't we, with everything that's going on. We'll have some of that. Thank you very much.
I do love that quote, get out of the trenches. There was an Oscar Wilde quote, which I used to have in my downstairs toilet, something akin to all of us are in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. Something like that. Most of us are in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars.
Oh, there you go, very nice. If you do like those special Advent messages, you can find all of them on our website, gbnews.com/Advent. A very Merry Christmas present from us to you.
Yes, right, time now for our massive giveaway.
Another present.
Another one, but before we give you the details, guess, Izzy, who's going to be having an amazing Christmas this year?
Is it Cliff and Julie from Essex?
It is, how did you know?
I don't know, but let's have a listen to what they had to say.
My name is Cliff.
And my name is Julie. And we won £25,500 gift voucher and a GB News goodie bag.
When my phone rang, I was on cloud nine. I couldn't even finish my job.
Amazing, just the best feeling ever.
We can get everything we want. We can buy presents for friends and family.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it. But we're glued to GB News. It's the best station ever.
Merry Christmas, GB News!
We love you!
We love you, Cliff and Julie. That's so nice, isn't it?
Yeah, well done to you. Congrats. It's going to be an amazing Christmas for you. But it could be an amazing Christmas and New Year for you, indeed.
Double your money.
Double your money.
£50,000 of tax-free cash available this time.
You could buy a combine harvester. You can get involved in farming.
Is that a dig at me? I was trying to think of what expensive assets these farmers have, and I just came up with the combine harvester. But anyway, I was under pressure.
It was good.
It was all
good.
right.
It was good. Good reference. Anyway, it could be yours. 50 grand is up for grabs.
I don't think it would buy you a combine harvester.
Probably not. Not with inheritance tax charges.
Exactly.
This is your chance to win 50k. Here's all the details you need to win.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Just checked it out. Would 50 grand buy your combine harvester? It definitely wouldn't. How much do they?
£750,000 new.
£750,000. So no wonder these family farmers who have to have all of this machinery. You talk about whatever their herd might be, you know, the value of that, plus a property and a car, and suddenly...
Not a lot. You're already a couple of million, 3 million.
Yeah. Anyway, we digress. But we're going to be talking a bit more about farming after this. Bev's out and about in London, and Charlie Peters is on a tractor. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned for that.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Friday night, live with Mark Dolan from 8 p.m.
You know, whenever I want to have a laugh, I will fire up a Ricky Gervais special on Netflix. He's funny, isn't he? Very politically incorrect. I might watch a vintage episode of Fawlty Towers if it hasn't been cancelled. Or I could just read up on the latest musings from the Welsh Labour government. And this week they have waged war on the countryside, which is apparently unwelcoming to British people of colour. Well, it's true, isn't it? I mean, those racial checkpoints in the Wye Valley are completely unacceptable. And the snowy bits of Mount Snowdon scream white privilege. Can you believe this story? It's proof, if you needed it, that Welsh Labour are barking mad and talking a load of shih tzu.
I think what's so interesting about this, I mean, this is an absurd question. This is ridiculous. Obviously, dogs and the countryside are not inherently racist. I think this entire connection between what is effective cultural Marxism in addition to what is effective socialism that is at the heart of Welsh Labour and many other hard-left groups in the United Kingdom.
I got to do a correction.
Go
because
on.
It's not Welsh Labour. It was one little thinky-tanky that did some research. I know it was taxpayer funded, but it was just a suggestion. Welsh Labour have not gone, yes, that's a good idea. This research, which I wholly agree is quite absurd, was done by interviewing the 4% ethnic minorities of Wales, and they came out with the fact that they don't feel welcome in green spaces because there are so many dogs, and that's how this was born. I mean, I don't know whether that makes it make any more sense.
And the fact that taxpayers are footing the bill for research like this is the real scandal. We had this earlier conversation about the National Health Service, where all of our money is going and being wasted, and it is also being wasted on absolute nonsense like this.
GB News, the People's Chat.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Now for the content we've all been waiting for. It is, of course, Charlie Peters in a tractor. He is with the convoy on their way to London to protest these changes to inheritance tax. And, well, I was going to say you're not walking the walk, but you are, well, riding the tractor this morning. Bring us up to speed.
Morning, Isabel. Morning, Ben. Yes, well, there's quite a lot of traffic, funnily enough, and I'm certainly now of the view that tractors should be allowed to use bus lanes because we've had to push past quite a few people to get up here. But there's been lots of support on the road so far, driving into London. Plenty of people beeping in support. At least I think there's beeping of support as we're coming through. Even a few police walking past, driving past and waving at the convoy, the cavalry of agriculturalists on the way to Westminster for that protest, as you say. I'm with Douglas Turner here. He's a farmer in Berkshire. We've just come from the Birkin Manor farm. It's been farming there for over 500 years. And there are some of the many family farms who really fear that today, and indeed in the coming months and years, that there won't be future generations for their family farms. I spoke to some 5th and 6th generation farmers who said that they're not confident that their children will follow them into the trade because of these inheritance tax changes. But it's not just that they're protesting against. Bumpy here, sorry. There's also some concerns about agreements with the EU. They want a veterinary agreement, Save British Farming, the campaign group, because of export issues for cattle. There are significant health checks that exports have to go through for food. There's also significant concerns about other regulation they're going to be raising. And they're bringing the tractors and they're bringing their anger directly to Parliament Square. We'll have all the reaction from central London in Westminster when this flotilla of tractors arrives.
OK, Charlie, great stuff. Look out for those speed cameras. There's plenty on the A4 into London, and we'll catch up with you shortly. Let's cross now to the protest in London, where GB News' own Bev Turner is amongst the crowd. Bev, good morning. What's going on where you are?
Morning all. Yeah, at the moment, not a lot. The protest you can hear in the background is actually about winter fuel pensioner allowances. There are protests almost every day at the moment around in this area. But as you can see, I've got Downing Street just behind me because the message is going to be given loud and clear this morning to the Prime Minister. And I'm joined now by a farmer who's come up from Kent. This is David Catt. Why are you here this morning, David? You've come a long way. First thing, why?
I'm one of the organisers of today's rally, protest. We did a protest earlier on in the year. We brought 150 tractors up from Kent to make a noise and make a stand about decreasing farm incomes, which are putting pressure on. And then we had the budget a couple of weeks ago, and that's going to be the final death nail in British farming's coffin, I'm afraid. And we're really concerned for family farms and family businesses.
Tell us about your property, your farm. How big is it? How many people do you employ there? What kind of things do you produce?
We've got 60 acres of market garden, which I farmed there for 52 years. When I left agricultural college, I formed a wholesale business to sell the vegetables because I knew the farm wasn't going to make enough income. That's run side by side with the farm over that period. The wholesale business has grown, and now my son, my nephew, my brother work in the business, my wife works in the business. We employ 30 to 40 staff, all local staff, and we sell local produce. It's the key to our business, is buying from local farmers and serving all the local farm shops with fresh English produce.
OK, all right, David. Well, you're going to be sticking around this morning. Charlie and that convoy of tractors are, of course, making their way down here. I will be here in Westminster when they arrive on Britain's Newsroom from 9:30. See you a little later.
Good stuff, Bev. Thanks very much indeed. And it's better weather for you, because it was just 2 weeks ago when you were on your last farmers' protest. It was absolutely freezing and snow as well. It didn't deter the farmers, but I know it was tough going. But, yeah, better out there for all those taking to the streets.
Stay tuned today, because they're going to be holding, as we've said, a mock funeral outside Westminster during PMQs to signify
Bev's all in black.
The death, essentially, signify the death of British farming. So stay tuned to GB News. And every day, of course, we're running our poll of the day. Today, we've been asking, is it time for the Prime Minister to take farmers seriously and reverse this inheritance tax grab?
Yeah, our polls are always fairly unanimous, but this has got to be up there with one of the most resounding results. 99% of you are saying, yes, it's time for the Prime Minister to change course on this. Just 1% of you in disagreement. That final result will be in Martin Daubney's show this afternoon, as always. And if you haven't yet cast your vote, gbnews.com/poll is the place to go for that.
Right, it's going to be a big day. Britain's Newsroom's coming up at 9:30. Andrew Pearce, Bev Turner, of course, is in central London as well. Charlie Peters will be on the tractor. He'll go to the protest as well. Thank you for having me over the past 2 weeks.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming. Eamonn will be back next week. Breakfast will be back from 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. As we're saying, Andrew and Bev up next. But in the meantime, one last look at your forecast this morning. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Stark contrast up and down the country today with a lot of dry weather but largely cloudy skies in the south. Meanwhile, some frost and fog first thing further north, especially through the central belt, around Glasgow, for example, as well as western parts of Northern Ireland. Sub-zero temperatures for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and where we've got fog first thing, well, that might not clear into the afternoon, so staying cold and with poor visibility lingering. Meanwhile, for England and Wales, cloudy skies generally, 6 to 8 Celsius in the afternoon. A keen easterly breeze along the south coast, bringing some showery rain into southern England, especially parts of South Devon and into Cornwall. But we end the day with clear skies for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland. One exception, Shetland, where it will be largely grey and damp, but dry weather for Scotland and Northern Ireland with clear skies leading to, once again, frost and fog overnight, and where we've got the fog persisting through the afternoon. That will just thicken and develop more widely overnight. England and Wales, meanwhile, largely cloudy skies remaining, and as a result, that blanket of cloud will keep things frost and fog-free, with temperatures dipping to 3 or 4 Celsius. We keep the showery rain across parts of South Devon and Cornwall. Another area of showery rain pushes into East Anglia, parts of the East Midlands, North East England. Otherwise, for many, it's a dry start to the day on Thursday. Again, frost and fog for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Some sunshine out there, particularly for parts of the Grampians, for example, Aberdeenshire, Caithness, Sutherland. But for many in the UK, it's a grey day with the lowest cloud expected across eastern parts of England and outbreaks of rain or showers occurring here. Meanwhile, temperatures staying at or around freezing across some colder parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, milder further south.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are delays of up to 2.5 hours to P&O Irish Sea sailings between Cairn Ryan and Larne, up to an hour and a quarter delays to Stena Line sailings between Cairn Ryan and Belfast. In Antrim, the A2 is closed in both directions on Coast Road at Glenarm after an accident. In Fermanagh, the A32 is closed each way along Mossfield Road at Ballina-Mallard after an accident, causing queues towards and away from Enniskillen. Stena Line and Irish ferry sailings between Holyhead and Dublin are suspended again today. There are delays of up to 6 hours to Stena Line sailings between Fishguard and Rosslare after the storms, and up to an hour and a quarter delays to DFDS sailings between Dover and Dunkirk. And in Cornwall, buses replaced trains between Newquay and St Austell because of emergency engineering work. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government